Chapter 1153, Something Kids Play With. Chapter 1153, Something Kids Play With. Fifth Miss tilted her little head and looked curious. I know how to flip a flower rope and pitch pot, but they still despise me for being too young and say that I don't have the strength. Humph. Zhang Yaya was stunned. Many things played by children from the countryside flashed across her mind, such as jumping on a horse, throwing mud, hitting a rat, throwing stones, and so on. However, these things did not seem to be suitable here. These children were all young ladies from wealthy families. They played elegantly. Didn't they hear what she said just now? Drawing, playing chess, and writing. No one was willing to get mud on them. Facing Fifth Miss' expectant gaze, Zhang Yaya instantly felt a little guilty. She could not help but look at Gu Yundong, who stroked her chin thoughtfully. After a while, she suddenly said, "That's a problem. I have an idea, but it will take some time." As she spoke, she stroked Fifth Miss' head and said softly, "I have something fun here, but I haven't made it yet. You have to wait for a while. Can you play with Kiki first? When it's done, Kiki will be the first to invite you over to play, okay?" Fifth Miss instantly shifted her gaze and met Gu Yundong's eyes. Her face was filled with excitement. "Something fun? What is it?" "You'll see. Be patient." "Okay." Fifth Miss was comforted and immediately went to flip the flower rope with Kiki. Lan Huar quickly brought in milk tea and milk. Gu Yundong gave Zhang Yaya a cup. Zhang Yaya only felt that the cup was filled with a sweet fragrance. She could not help but swallow her saliva and lower her head to take a careful sip. Then, her eyes lit up. It was really delicious. No wonder so many madams and young ladies like to come to New Tea Pavilion. The thing called milk tea could really make one's tongue taste sweet. Zhang Yaya's face was filled with happiness. After drinking half a cup, she suddenly came to her senses. She hurriedly put down the cup and turned to look at Gu Yundong. Unexpectedly, Gu Yundong took out a piece of paper and a brush from somewhere and was seriously drawing something. She carefully leaned over and looked at it carefully, but she didn't understand. But seeing how focused Gu Yundong was, she did not dare to make a sound to disturb her. She simply watched the two children play. Occasionally, she would take a sip of milk tea and look at the scenery outside the window. Such a quiet and comfortable atmosphere was a lifestyle that Zhang Yaya had never experienced before. If only Xiaoxi was here too. As she was thinking, there was a knock on the door. Zhang Yaya was shocked and quickly stood up to open the door. There were two middle-aged women standing at the door. When Zhang Yaya saw their expressions, her body instantly became stiff and reserved. Fortunately, Gu Yundong's voice quickly sounded from behind. "Madam Qiu, Aunt Ku, you're here. Come in quickly." Zhang Yaya immediately made way to let the two in. Madam Qiu was slightly stunned when she saw Fifth Miss playing at the side. When Kiki saw Aunt Ku smiling sweetly at her, she didn't rush over and throw herself into her arms because she still had to accompany her heartbroken friend who had been abandoned by her two sisters. Gu Yundong introduced Zhang Yaya to them before saying, "I heard from Lan Huar that you went to discuss something. It seems to be quite important. What is it? Do you want to tell me?" "There's indeed something I want to resolve. Since Boss Gu is here, let's discuss it together." Madam Qiu nodded and sat opposite Gu Yundong. Chapter 1154, Children's Playground. Chapter 1154, Children's Playground. Gu Yundong was all ears. What surprised her was that Madam Qiu and Aunt Ku were discussing the same thing as her. Madam Qiu explained the recent situation of New Tea Pavilion. Ever since young Master Shao became famous in the prefectural city, the business of this milk tea shop has improved. Ordinary people might not know about Shao Qingyuan and Gu Yundong's relationship, but how could the wealthy families in the city not know? They would find out after a simple investigation, so there were especially many madams and young ladies who came to the shop. There were many wives and children. There were not many rooms that were filled with childishness. However, these young children especially liked such a room and were unwilling to give it up. Later on, Madame Zhou thought that she might as well let the children play together and let the servants watch over them. Then, there would be no need to snatch the room. However, a new problem arose. The younger children could not stay in the room for too long, especially when they saw the older young masters and young ladies drawing and reading. They felt especially bored and shouted to find their mother. After they found their mothers, because the room was too strict, they were dissatisfied again. Therefore, the backyard of New Tea Pavilion would often become chaotic, affecting the other guests. Thus, Madame Zhou started discussing this matter with Aunt Ku, who specialized in taking care of children. Gu Yundong smiled when she heard that. She turned the piece of paper that she had just drawn around to show them. Madame Zhou tilted her head and stared at it for a long time, but she couldn't figure it out. She asked in confusion, "What is this?" "This is called a slide. It's specially for children to play with. There are also small swings beside it, small wooden horses, and seesaws. When the time comes, the young children who can't sit still can come to this area to play." The backyard of New Tea Pavilion was big enough. They could specially open a large room with soundproof walls. The ground was covered with a thick carpet, so they were not afraid of the child falling. They also found 2 people to specially look after the child. These kids would love it, she thought. New Tea Pavilion's business was booming, and problems followed. When faced with such a situation, they naturally had to think of a way to resolve it. Gu Yundong used to like the children's area specially set up by some restaurants. When adults ate, they chatted for a long time. Most of the children were impatient and could not sit still. Their parents could not let them run around in the restaurant. At this time, the children's area was very convenient. Madame Zhou's eyes lit up as she listened to Gu Yundong's explanation. There was no need for a large space. There was no need for them to stay quietly. They would not despise the room for not being child-friendly. "Good, very good." Madame Zhou clapped her hands and said, "Let's do that." "Boss Gu, are you going to do this?" Gu Yundong thought of Bien Han. His uncle's legs were much better now. He used to be a carpenter, so carpentry was not a problem. However, carpentry jobs were not easy to find, so he gradually began to carve some exquisite things. The slide could be made of many small wooden blocks. Bien Han was used to carving, so he must be very careful and patient when making this thing. At the same time, she would take care of her uncle's business. This was a huge deal. Gu Yundong nodded. "All right, leave this to me." The few of them discussed the design carefully again. Madame Zhou went out to work in satisfaction and took the sleepy 5th Miss away. Only Aunt Ku was left in the room. Gu Yundong then asked about her trip to the capital. Chapter 1155, Fortunately, not long. Chapter 1155, Fortunately, not long. Aunt Ku hugged little Kiki and kissed her passionately for a while. It made her giggle for a while before she let go. Then, she talked about the reason for going to the capital. Niet Song caused some love debt in the capital. It's not a big deal. I accompanied his mother to the capital. It's fine now. As she spoke, she sighed. It's better to come back. The weather in the capital isn't suitable. Xuanhe Prefecture is more comfortable. Gu Yundong nodded. After all, I'm in the Xuanhe Prefecture. The corners of Aunt K's mouth twitched. They had not seen each other for more than half a year. Why was this woman still so shameless? She even said it in a serious and self-righteous manner without any shyness. She glanced sideways at Gu Yundong and changed the topic. By the way, Nie Shuang has taken a fancy to a suitable shop in the capital and bought it. He said that it will be used to open New Tea Pavilion in the future. I've helped to take a look. The location is indeed not bad. Do you want Feng Danning to continue to help repair it in the capital or look for it locally? They had been planning to open a New Tea Pavilion in the capital for a long time. Gu Yundong only knew Song Dejiang in the capital. Madame Dai and Nie Shuang knew many people, so they had always asked people to pay attention to suitable shops in the capital. Now that they had found it, it was naturally a happy thing. However, when it would open for business was still debatable. It was necessary to renovate it first. As for the renovator Euro, Gu Yundong said, I have to ask Uncle Feng. After all, it's a long journey to the capital. It will take a lot of time to go back and forth. Aunt Ku nodded and thought of something else. When are you and Shao Qingyuan getting married? Ahem, the end of August. Aunt Ku raised her eyebrows. Have you chosen a date? It was chosen yesterday. Aunt Ku thought for a moment and said, with your mother's current situation, she can't prepare you for the wedding. After all, Dafeng has just arrived at the Shuanhe prefecture not long ago. There are some things she doesn't understand. If you need it, I can help you. Of course I need it. Gu Yundong had long treated Aunt Ku as her own elder. Previously, when she was away from home for a few months, it was Aunt Ku who took care of the family. Moreover, Gu Yundong knew that it was more appropriate to leave these matters to Aunt Ku. When Aunt Ku heard her answer without hesitation, she nodded and took over the matter with satisfaction. I'll discuss it with your eldest aunt and the others when the time comes. Gu Yundong quickly told her about Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya. When the time came, the two pairs would get married together. Aunt Ku had an idea. Gu Yundong chatted with her for a while longer. Seeing that it was getting late, she left New Tea Pavilion with Chang Yaya and Kiki and headed for Jinxiu restaurant. When the three of them entered the room, Gu Yundong noticed that there were many peanuts and snacks on the table. More than half of them had been eaten. She was immediately curious. Have you been here for a long time? Shao Qingyuan was calm. Not long. Gu Xiaoxi smiled. I've heard 3 stories from the storyteller. It's really nice. Gu Yundong, Euro, Chang Yaya immediately sat beside Gu Xiaoxi and asked softly, what story did you tell? I'll tell you when we get back. He whispered into her ear. Shao Qingyuan coughed lightly as if nothing had happened. He raised his voice and called out to the waiter outside, serve the dishes. Gu Yundong held back her laughter. After dinner, the few of them stopped shopping. Now that the weather was gradually getting hot, they would often be covered in sweat when they went out in the afternoon. Gu Yundong brought them to Xingtao Street to look for eldest Aunt Gu. Chapter 1156, Discussing Business with Uncle. Chapter 1156, Discussing Business with Uncle. Ever since she found out about youngest Uncle Gus' whereabouts at the Su residence, Gu Yundong had rushed home with eldest Aunt Gu. Hence, Gu Yundong had never taken a closer look at the house she rented. When she came in again, the house had changed drastically. Bien Han was a carpenter and was best at repairs. Not only did he have a few more shelves in the courtyard, but he also had 2 more benches. Eldest Aunt Gu was very happy to see them. She quickly showed them around her courtyard. Although it's rented and not very big, it's enough for the 3 of us to live in. There's also a small warehouse here with some trinkets carved by his father. Gu Yundong went to look at the carvings. Compared to the small carvings at the beginning, these carvings were more exquisite now. These wooden carvings were in sets. According to eldest Aunt Gu, these sets of wooden carvings were especially popular. There were even some customers who would customize their wood carvings when they saw that something was missing. It seemed that eldest Aunt's business was not bad. After coming out of the warehouse, Gu Yundong turned around and said to Bien Han, Uncle, I have a business deal to discuss with you. I wonder if you're interested. Bien Han was stunned. Business? Yes, I want to hire you to help me make a set of things. Bien Han immediately waved his hand. Yundong, just tell me what you want to do. I can do it immediately. You're treating me like an outsider if you talk about business. Eldest Aunt Gu also nodded at the side. That's right, that's right. You're still talking about money with Aunt and Uncle? Gu Yundong did not know whether to laugh or cry. Aunt, if I ask Uncle to do it myself, would definitely not be polite. But this is a job in the shop. How can I take advantage of Uncle? From the shop. Gu Dafeng was surprised. New Tea Pavilion? Gu Yundong nodded. Gu Dafeng immediately became excited. New Tea Pavilion was not Yundong's own business. Of course, the accounts had to be clearly divided. She did not refuse. Then what else does the new tea pavilion need him to do? Do you want to carve things? Do you have any requirements for wood? Bien Han rubbed his hands excitedly as he listened from the side. New tea pavilion's business. From Yendong's words, it was a big business. Among the people present, only Chang Yaya knew what kind of job it was. Shao Qingyuan and Gu Xiaoxi were both confused. Gu Yundong entered the house with a smile and showed Bien Han the drawings he had made earlier. This is a slide. It's not a small carving. It's a bigger one. It's for children to play with. Can Uncle make it? Bien Han took the blueprints over. He could not understand the blueprints at first, especially the blueprints drawn by Gu Yundong. Only someone like Feng Danning, who had worked with her before, could understand them at a glance. However, Bien Han had been staying in the small courtyard for the past few days. Gu Yundong and Gu Dajiang had painted a lot, so he would also ponder over it. In addition, a portion of the set of things he had carved previously had been drawn by Gu Yundong, so he was quite familiar with this. However, the blueprint this time was of a larger size. He needed Gu Yundong to explain it to him in detail. Bien Han's eyes lit up as he listened. He looked at the blueprint again and again. After a while, he said, "Independent Illinois, try it first and make a small one first." Seeing how cautious he was, Gu Yundong felt that there was no problem. Bien Han immediately took a piece of wood and began to work while Gu Yundong and the rest went to the Su residence. Chapter 1157, High Pay. Chapter 1157, High Pay. After returning from Great Rock Village, Gu Yundong felt that she still had to make things clear to Mother Su about Hong Xiaoni. Gu Xiaoxi also wanted to visit Mother Su. When she first came to the Shuana prefecture, Mother Su had also taken care of him. Moreover, it was Mother Su who told Gu Yundong about him. That was why their family was reunited. They were truly grateful to her. Shao Qingyuan was holding the gifts in his hand when the group entered the Su residence. Mother Su had yet to recognize Gu Xiaoxi at a glance. It was only when she heard him introduce himself that she suddenly reacted. However, she saw Chang Yaya standing beside Gu Xiaoxi. Hong Xiaoni Euro was not around. Mother Su was stunned for a moment until Gu Yundong told her the whole story. Mother Su was silent for a while after hearing that. In the end, she sighed and said, "I really didn't expect things to turn out like this. Fortunately, you guys went early and saved her in time." Speaking of this, Mother Su suddenly felt a little lucky. When Hong Xiaoni came to visit 2 years ago, she didn't force them to stay at her house. Otherwise, with Hong Xiaoni's character, who knew what kind of storm she would cause to the family? No matter what, everyone was happy. Gu Yundong and the rest returned to the Bien family when they were almost done in the Su family. In just one afternoon, Bien Han had already completed the small slide model. It was very exquisite and small. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up when she saw it. Kiki couldn't bear to put it down. She looked at Bien Han expectantly. The latter laughed and patted her head. "When the slide is ready, I'll give this to Kiki." "Thank you, Uncle." The little girl jumped up happily. Bien Han then looked at Gu Yundong and asked, "Is this feasible?" "Of course." Not only that, Gu Yundong looked at the small model and suddenly thought of something else. A kind of small DIY house. With all the components ready, one could build the house by oneself. Gu Yundong felt that other than wood carvings, his uncle might be able to expand and make such small toys in the future. However, it was still too early to talk about this. At least, it had to wait until he finished the work at hand. She just didn't know if his uncle wanted to focus on carving or if he wanted to earn more money with more novel things. Gu Yundong looked at the slide model again and said to Bien Han, "Since there's no problem, let's talk about the salary next. I've talked to Madame Chiu about making the full set of parts like the slide swing and seesaw. The salary is 20 taels. Of course, this is our offer. Uncle can negotiate, too, 20 taels." And it was negotiable? Bien Han and Gu Dafeng were both shocked. Gu Xiaoxi, who was at the side, also widened his eyes and gasped. Was the salary in the prefecture capitale Euro so high? Bien Han hurriedly shook his head. Too much. Yundong, I know you're taking care of me, but you gave me such a high salary. It's hard for you to explain to the other owners. This is not good, not good. Gu Yundong smiled. Uncle, you're thinking too much. I didn't take care of you. This was Madame Chio's suggestion in the first place. You can ask Aunt. She heard it too. Chang Yaya immediately nodded. When she heard the price, she was also shocked. One had to know that all her savings for several years back then were only 3 taels of silver. Gu Yundong smiled. Besides, this job is not as easy as you think. Chapter 1158, half a month later. Chapter 1158, half a month later. First of all, the slide and swings are for children, so they have to be very sturdy. At the very least, they have to be safe. They have to be smooth and not have wooden spikes. Secondly, this thing has to be very strong. If the wood used is even the slightest bit substandard, it can't be used. Secondly, this slide requires a year of after-sales maintenance in the future. Bien Han was puzzled. What do you mean by after-sales maintenance? You just have to check the repairs every once in a while to see if there's anything that's old and inappropriate. You have to repair and adjust it in time. Bien Han was enlightened. That's not a problem. Not to mention a year, even if it's 8 to 10 years, it'll still go. There was no need for 8 to 10 years. After all, New Tea Pavilion's business was good. When the slide was old, it would definitely be replaced generously. There's one last point. Uncle, your legs have just recovered after all. Some rough and tiring work is still not suitable for you. I'm thinking, can we hire a small worker to help? Bien Han was stunned. He had really never thought about this. But what Gu Yundong said made sense. It was not easy for him to treat his leg. If it broke again because of this, it would be a huge loss. But who should he hire? Bien Han was conflicted. Gu Xiaoxi hurriedly pointed at herself and said, I, brother-in-law, I can help you. Bien Han turned to look at him, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Yes, Xiaoxi had just arrived at the Shuanhe prefecture, and she didn't have any work to do now. He was also young and capable, and he was family. He didn't have to worry about leaking Yundong's blueprint. He was the most suitable candidate. All right, then help me. Well, split the money we earn equally. Gu Xiaoxi hurriedly waved her hand. How can we split it equally? I'm just a helper. I don't know much about carpentry. If we split the wages equally, what kind of person would I be? Buta Euro, Gu Xiaoxi said, if we split it equally, I'll quit. Seeing this, Gu Yundong could only say to Bien Han, Uncle, it's indeed not appropriate to split it equally. Why don't we do this? Since Uncle is here to help, you'll give him the salary of the workers in the prefectural city. How about that? Bien Han thought about it and nodded in agreement. In the following days, Bien Han and Gu Xiaoxi started to get busy. Because they had to check the location and size of the rooms, the closing time of the New Tea Pavilion had been adjusted for the past few days. It was brought forward by an hour. After the guests had left, Bien Han brought Gu Xiaoxi to take a look at the location. When he was almost done with his research, he started to do it. Because of this, Chang Yaya stayed with Gu Xiaoxi at the Bien family's house and took care of their meals and daily necessities. Anyway, Yuanji and Yunshu had already returned to Fengkai County to attend classes. Hence, the couple also had a room to stay in and it was not crowded. Bien Han temporarily stopped carving, so Gu Dafeng naturally had less time to go to the market. Hence, she and Aunt Ku prepared for the wedding of Gu Yundong and Gu Xiaoxi. With Aunt Ke's suggestion, Gu Dafeng felt much more at ease. From the beginning, she was afraid that she would not do well. After all, she was just a countryside woman. If she was preparing for the wedding, most of it would be arranged according to the standards of the countryside. However, Yundong and Qingyuan's identities were different now. If they were doing the countryside style, they would look much more petty and would be laughed at. With Aunt Ku around, Gu Dafeng only needed to help from the side and learn more about the rules here. Half a month later, the slide of New Tea Pavilion was finally completed. Chapter 1159, New Tea Pavilion has a new thing. Chapter 1159, New Tea Pavilion has a new thing. Madame Dai and Nie Shuang both knew about slides, but they had never seen one before. They had only heard Madame Chiu give them a rough idea. Gu Yundong had always been proficient in publicity, and it was the same this time. 2 days ago, she had already informed the guests that New Tea Pavilion would be launching new things today. They were specially prepared for guests with children at home. Everyone was interested when they heard that. The things in New Tea Pavilion had always been novel and would not disappoint anyone. This time, it was said that Boss Gu had personally prepared it. Even Madame Dai and eldest Miss Nia had never seen it before. Driven by curiosity, both the women who were taking care of the children and the young ladies who were not married yet all appeared at the entrance of New Tea Pavilion. The slide was already in the room. Beside Gu Yundong stood the excited Bian Han and Gu Xiaoxi. After all, they were the ones who made it. They could explain it in front of everyone. Fifth Miss, who had almost bumped into Kiki that day, had also come. Now, she was holding Kiki's hand and saying proudly to her third and fourth sisters, Sister Gu said that she suddenly had this idea after hearing my words. That's why Kiki and I are the first to play. You can't compete with me, understand? Her third and fourth sisters were surprised. They didn't know that the new thing from New Tea Pavilion was actually related to their sister. When the madam and young lady heard this, they immediately became even more curious. The slide was covered with a cloth. Madame Dai was holding a corner in her hand, and so was Nie Shuang. Someone said impatiently, shouldn't we pull it open? Everyone is almost here. Madame Dai looked at Gu Yundong, who nodded. Madame Dai and Nie Shuang took a deep breath. Their eyes were also filled with anticipation as they reached out and pulled down. With a crash, the cloth on the slide fell to the ground, revealing what was inside. Everyone focused their gazes and saw a strange-looking large object standing in the middle. Everyone did not understand. They only knew that this thing had a ladder. After going up, there was a small house, but the roof of the house was in the shape of a mushroom. It looked especially bright and interesting. There were 2 slipways beside the house. One was straight, and the other was circular. On the other side of the house was a net. There were handrails on both sides that allowed people to walk over. After passing through the net, there was a small roof. The roof was in the shape of a windmill. It looked like they were in the suburbs and free. There was also a slide here that was slightly higher. There was a fence beside the entire large object. The fence was also shaped. There were even paintings on it. They looked like some small animals and were very cute. Everyone could not help but be curious. What is this? It looks strange. I've never seen it before. Of course you haven't seen it before. Otherwise, how can it be called a novelty? Even Madame Dai and Nie Shuang could not understand it after sizing it up for a long time. Gu Yundong gave Bian Han an encouraging look. Bian Han took a deep breath and tugged at his sweaty palms. He took a step forward and said, Ladies and gentlemen, you must be very curious about this thing. Let me introduce it to everyone. This thing is called a slide. It's specially designed for children between 3 and 6 years old. Bian Han was stunned for a moment when he saw that everyone's gaze was on him. However, he quickly pinched himself and recited the words he had practiced at home hundreds of times. The slide allows children to exercise their physical fitness, increase the balance of their legs, and make their hands and feet more coordinated. It can also allow children to have more courage and confidence by climbing and sliding. Chapter 1160, Envy. Chapter 1160, Envy. Everyone was a little surprised. Thesauro had such a function. Seeing was better than hearing. Gu Yundong saw everyone's gaze and gave Kiki a look. Kiki immediately pulled Fifth Miss forward. When they reached the stairs, she turned to Fifth Miss and said, Don't be afraid. Just follow me. It's very fun. Fifth Miss was not afraid at all. She was eager to give it a try and nodded vigorously. Kiki started to walk up the stairs. Fifth Miss immediately followed her obediently. Her mother wanted to pull her, but she couldn't. The two girls entered the mushroom house one after another and sat down. Gu Yundong went forward and adjusted their postures before nodding. Kiki moved her butt and slashed down with a swoosh. Fifth Miss followed closely behind and shouted excitedly, "I'm coming down, I'm coming down." It's so fun. There was a blanket at the bottom of the slide, so she was not afraid of falling and colliding. After the two girls slid down, they immediately turned around and climbed the stairs again. Everyone was speechless. The two of them went to the net again and passed by another windmill house. They rode down on the rotary slide. That was not all. The two of them became more and more excited as they played. When they slid down, they went to climb the ladder or walk the net. They went back and forth a few times, making the other children beside them envious. They revealed longing expressions. The ladies and young girls present actually felt that it was quite interesting, but this slide was too small for them. It was impossible for them to play even if they wanted to. Hence, when Kiki and Fifth Miss tried to climb the ladder for the third time, they were caught by Third Mississippi. She asked excitedly, "Fifth sister, is this slide really that fun? What does it feel like to go up?" It felt a little high when I first walked up. But with Kiki around, I'm not afraid at all. Kiki held my hand and it was very firm. When I went down the slide, I felt like I was flying. It's too interesting. Oh right, there's also that net. When I first left, I thought I would fall, but I didn't. After all, the net is small. I'm too big. After saying that, she broke free from Third Miss' hand and ran over again. When the other children heard this, they couldn't take it anymore and wanted to play too. "Mother, I'm not afraid of heights at all. I want to go. I want to go through that net. I'm very big too. I want to slide down. I want to fly." The madams and young ladies present had a headache from the noise, but some were deep in thought. Perhaps it could really improve a child's courage? The height of this slide was indeed average for them, but it was a little high for children. If they could overcome their timidity and have fun, and also solve the noise problem in New Tea Pavilion, wouldn't that be perfect? All of them looked at Gu Yundong. The latter smiled and said, "Of course you can play if you want, but there are 3 rules." The children nodded profusely. Firstly, you have to line up. Come one by one. You can't bully the weak. Secondly, you have to protect your belongings and not sabotage them. Don't kick the slide and cause trouble for others. Thirdly, you have to follow the order. Go up the steps, but don't climb. Be reasonable and don't make a fuss. That was all for now. She would think of other things later. Can you do these 3 things? As soon as Gu Yundong finished speaking, the children present immediately nodded. Yes, yes, yes. Chapter 1161, Salary of 20 Taels. Chapter 1161, Salary of 20 Taels. Gu Yundong got someone to arrange for them to line up and come one by one. Then, she lifted the other 3 pieces of cloth. Everyone was stunned and looked at the 3 facilities. One was a swing set. They knew this. The other was a small wooden horse. They also knew this. The last Oniyuro. Gu Yundong did not say much and let Kiki and Fifth Miss play. The two of them immediately sat on both sides of the seesaw. There were 2 small stools on both sides, and there was a rail in front for you to hold. After Kiki sat on it, she tapped her toes and flew up. The other children were attracted over, but they also wanted to play with the slide. They looked at this and then at that, their faces filled with anxiety. But these children were still queuing obediently because of what Gu Yundong had said. Soon, people at the swing set and the small wooden horse went up to play, but the most lively thing was still the slide. A madam looked at the lively scene and could not help but say, "My son has always liked to pretend to be an adult. It's rare to see him acting like this now." That's right. My girl has always been afraid of heights. She doesn't mind now. Presumably, she had been pretending in the past, but when she saw something fun, she revealed her true colors. The children played together. These people were all children from wealthy families. They had been trained in basic etiquette since they were young. Most of them could listen, so it was not difficult to manage them. Aunt Ku was in charge here. She had always liked children and could even tell stories to these little fellows. Gu Yindong saw that there was nothing else for her to do here, so she brought Bian Han and Gu Xiaoxi out. As soon as the two of them arrived at the courtyard, they could not help but feel excited. I didn't expect it to be so popular. Look at those children. They're having a lot of fun. I think the guests are also very satisfied. Gu Yindong led them to the counter and said, when this place becomes popular, there might be business. Uncle, you have to be mentally prepared. Bian Han clenched his fists. Will there really be business? Will they spend money to make such a thing and leave it at home? Of course there will. You'll know when the time comes. As they spoke, the three of them stopped in front of the counter. Madame Qiu was already there. When she saw Gu Yundong, she nodded slightly. Then, he took out a money bag from under the counter and pushed it in front of Bian Han. With a businesslike expression, he said, "Here is 20 taels of silver. It's the fee for this slide. According to what we agreed on back then, there's still a year to repair it." 20 taels of silver. Was it really 20 taels of silver? Bian Han could be considered to have seen the world now, but earning 20 taels in one go was still a huge sense of accomplishment for him. He nodded quickly. I'll come over often to see if the slide swing is damaged. Many, many thanks. Bian Han kept the silver and smiled widely. It had only been half a month, but he had already earned so much. After the payment was settled, Gu Yundong left New Tea Pavilion with the two of them. After getting into the carriage, Bian Han opened the money bag and took out the silver pieces inside. He handed 3 taels of silver to Gu Xiaoxi. Here is your pay. The workers in the prefectural city earned about 3 taels of silver a month. This was the case for Su Changshan and Zhuangzi in Gu Yundong's shop. Gu Xiaoxi had actually only worked for half a month. However, the estimated working period was a month. The salary had already been discussed, so the money wasn't too much. Chapter 1162, Building a House. Chapter 1162, Building a House. Gu Xiaoxi did not decline. He held the silver happily and even took a big bite. Only then did he laugh out loud. Although he had more than 100 taels of silver on him now, in the end, he did not earn them himself. Now that he had this money in his hand, he felt especially at ease. At the thought of this, he suddenly sighed again. Yundong said that there would be more business coming to my door in the future. I want to help you and you can give me a salary. Unfortunately, I have to transfer the household register to Yongfu village first and build a house. He had wanted to go back previously, but he happened to bump into Bian Han who wanted to do a slide, so he was delayed for half a month. After all, he was going to get married. How could he not have a house? At that time, wouldn't Yaya be wronged? He had money in his hands now. He could build a better one. At the mention of building a house, Gu Yundong could not help but turn to look at Bian Han. Uncle, do you want to take this opportunity to build your house? Bian Han wanted to cover it, but he hesitated. Now that they had some money in their hands, they had discussed with Dafeng before that it was best to build a house as soon as possible. Although they were renting a house in the city now, in their opinion, they had to have a root in their hometown. Mulan's grave was still in the back mountain of Yongfu village. Yuanji was also staying in the county city to study. In the future, when he returned to his hometown during the New Year and holidays, he could not stay in the Gu family forever. That would be ridiculous. What they were hesitating about was how the house should be built and how big it should be. Who wouldn't want to build a bigger, sturdier, and more imposing house? Especially when they saw the 2 green brick houses of the Gu and Shao families, everyone in the village was envious. When Bian Han first saw it, a raging fire burned in the depths of his heart. He secretly swore that he would do the same when he built a house in the future. He had money in his hands now. Although it was not enough, Yundong had been tight on money when she was building the house. He could borrow it and work hard. And yet Bien Han could only think about it in his heart. He did not have Yundong's courage to build such a house after escaping from the famine. He did not have Yundong's ability either. Before the house was built, she had already earned enough money. He thought about building a house that was slightly larger than the one he was renting now. However, he and Gu Dafeng were still hesitating about whether to build a mud house or a brick house. Now that Gu Yundong asked, Bien Han also wanted to hear her opinion. A brick house. Gu Yundong's answer came as no surprise. Bien Han had already guessed it. It was the same for him and Gu Dafeng. Now, Gu Yundong had made up his mind for them. On the other hand, Gu Xiaoxi frowned and asked softly, "Are we going to build a brick house?" In the past, in Gu village, only the chief's house was a brick house. If we build it so well, won't others be jealous? As he spoke, he quickly calculated the money in his heart. He had enough money in his hands, but he still had to save it for the wedding and farming. He had to save it. Bien Han glanced at Gu Xiaoxi, who had his head lowered, with a complicated look in his eyes. Jealous? You're thinking too much. When you see the houses of the Gu family and the Shao family, you will know that if you are too jealous, you will become numb. After the discussion, Gu Yundong and the rest returned to Yongfu village the next day. Shao Qingyuan, Gu Xiaoxi, and his wife returned too. Bien Han and Gu Dajiang stayed in the Xuanhe prefecture for the time being. Chapter 1163, Feeling Very Poor. Chapter 1163, Feeling very poor. They were going to settle down in Yongfu village in the future. Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya were still a little excited. From the moment they arrived at the entrance of the village, they couldn't help but lift the curtain of the carriage to look outside. This road is really wide. I didn't expect a village's road to be similar to an official road. Gu Xiaoxi sighed. It seems that Yongfu village is much richer than Gu village. Gu Dafeng covered her mouth and laughed. This is all thanks to Yundong. Huh? Gu Xiaoxi was puzzled. Just as she was about to ask, she heard Chang Yaya's exclamation. There's actually such a magnificent house in the village. Gu Xiaoxi immediately looked in the direction of her finger and widened her eyes in shock. The carriage stopped at that moment. Gu Yundong and the rest alighted, but Gu Xiaoxi was still in a daze. Gu Dafeng walked to the carriage window and reached out to pat his head. All right, come down quickly. We're home. We're home. Gu Xiaoxi hurriedly came down. Then, she watched as Gu Dafeng and the others calmly walked into the spacious and imposing green brick house. His mouth fell open in astonishment. No, it can't be, can it? This is his brother's house. Gu Xiaoxi turned around and exchanged glances with Chang Yaya, who was also stunned. After a while, he began to worry about his silver. Initially, he thought that 100 taels was already a lot, but now, it seemed like he was very poor. Seeing that they did not come in for a long time, Gu Dafeng ran out and pulled the two of them in. As soon as she entered, Gu Xiaoxi realized that this house was even more beautiful and unique than she had imagined. He fell in love with it at first glance. He began to count the money in his hands again. Gu Yundong did not wait for him to finish calculating and went to look for Qinliang. Qinliang had been overjoyed recently. The cowpox vaccination in their village had been completed, but Shao Quan did not leave. He was still holding down the fort in Yongfu village. Therefore, many people from the neighboring villages came to ask for help. Now, Yongfu village was in high demand. It was extremely popular. During this period of time, there were many matchmakers who visited. Some had daughters who wanted to marry into Yongfu village, and some had sons who wanted to marry the daughters of Yongfu village. Qinliang walked with the wind under his feet, looking exceptionally imposing. And these were all blessings brought about by Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan. Therefore, when he saw Gu Yundong coming to look for him, Qinliang immediately got Madame Zhou to make tea and send snacks. He smiled and let them sit. He asked happily, "Why are you back at the village at this time? Did something happen in the workshop?" Then, he looked at Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya. "These two area euro, they're my uncle and aunt." Qin Liang was stunned for a moment and was a little uncertain. "Who are they again?" "My uncle and aunt," Gu Yundong repeated. Qin Liang's eyes widened. Of course, he knew that the Gu family had been looking for Gu Xiaoxi. To be honest, he had always thought that the youngest uncle of the Gu family might have passed away a long time ago. He did not expect them to really find him. His surprised gaze circled around Gu Xiaoxi twice before he finally suppressed the gossip in his heart and said, "Congratulations, congratulations. Your family is finally reunited." "Yes, our family is reunited." Gu Yundong sighed. "So this time, besides letting my uncle's household register be in Yongfu village, we also want to build my uncle and aunt's house. This is a good thing." Qin Liang clapped his hands happily. After a pause, he seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Or do you want your Uncle Feng to build it?" Chapter 1164, Budget for the House. Gu Yundong shook his head. "Uncle Feng is very busy now. He has a few major businesses on hand that he has to personally keep an eye on, so I didn't look for him." Feng Danning had always been grateful to Gu Yundong. If the Gu family wanted to build a house, he would come personally without a word. It was Gu Yundong who stopped him. He had finally stabilized his footing in the prefectural city and happened to have an urgent job in his hands. He had agreed with his boss that he would do it personally and had a completion date. If he ignored it at this juncture, his good reputation would be ruined. Therefore, Gu Yundong found his disciple, Shao Gao. Shao Gao had always followed Feng Danning and did not leave when he was down and out. He was a very patient and meticulous person. He was also diligent in his work. Gu Yundong was relieved. As for the renovation of the shop in the capital that Aunt Ku had mentioned to Gu Yundong, she had also looked for Feng Danning. Feng Danning thought about it for a long time and rejected it. Even though he knew that this was a very rare opportunity given to him by Gu Yundong, even though he also wanted to go up, he was very clear about his ability. If he walked too quickly, it would be easy for him to fall down. It was better to build a solid foundation in the prefectural city before developing to the surroundings. Didn't everybody see that Gu Yundong's shop was only open in the prefectural city and not in the capital? It was not that she had no money or ability, but it was just not time yet. The new tea pavilion business only dared to take down the shop because of Madame Dai and Nye Shuang. They had connections in the capital. Therefore, they were still discussing finding suitable craftsmen for the renovation of new tea pavilion in the capital. Qin Liang nodded when he heard what she meant. Shao Gao is an expert too. He knows how to be grateful. He could have finished his apprenticeship long ago. He has always been by Daning's side. It won't be a problem to hand him over. Gu Yundong nodded and told Qin Liang the start date. Then, she bid farewell to Madame Zhou and returned to the Gu residence. The next day, the news that the Gu family was going to build a house spread. At this moment, farming had begun. Many people were busy, but anyone who had some free time would come and help. Gu Xiaoxi and Bian Han's house was at the foot of the mountain. Gu Yundong had bought the land in their name. The land at the foot of the mountain became extremely hot because of the newly built road. Recently, a few families had already built houses nearby. There were too many people living in the original houses, so they chose this place after splitting up. Gu Xiaoxi and Bian Han had taken a closer look at the location and were thinking about the shape of the house. After learning that the Gu family's brick house was designed and painted by Gu Yundong, Gu Xiaoxi took a brush and paper and stuffed them into her hands without hesitation. "Help me draw one too. I don't need one as big as yours. Just a smaller one." He tried his best to restrain his gaze from looking at the green brick house in front of him, lest he lost control and wanted to build it bigger. Gu Yundong was amused by his bitter expression. "All right, then tell me first. How much do you plan to spend on building this house?" Gu Xiaoxi counted with his fingers and gritted his teeth. 30 to 40 taels. At most, it won't exceed 40 taels. Gu Yundong knew what to do. Alright, I'll draw it for you. Bien Han's budget was originally not as high as Gu Xiaoxi's. He did not have more than 100 taels of silver in his hands. However, there was still a fire burning in his heart. Hence, he gritted his teeth and planned to build a house like Gu Xiaoxi's. Gu Yundong nodded and began to draw. However, the next day, Bien Han returned to Xuanhe Prefecture. Chapter 1165. Why is Tao Yen here? Gu Yundong was right. The Xuanhe Prefecture had indeed found Bien Han for business. Although it was not a slide, but just 2 small wooden horses, it was still a good start. Hence, the construction of the house was left to Gu Xiaoxi. Gu Xiaoxi was in high spirits every day. He discussed with Shao Gao how to build the house every day as if he was very experienced. After Gu Yundong finished drawing the structure of the house, she did not interfere much. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan helped Gu Xiaoxi pull the bricks and tiles very skillfully. Seeing that the house was being built bit by bit, Gu Yundong began to ponder about the expansion of the Gu family's workshop. The workshop was still too small. Although it was not a problem to supply the 2 shops in the county and prefectural city, that was only under the circumstances of limited purchasing. Prefecture Magistrate Dai had told her last time that the limited purchase of white sugar had already caused many families in the prefectural city to be dissatisfied. It would not be good for her if this continued. Therefore, Gu Yundong planned to increase the production volume. Then, the workshop would have to expand again. When Shao Qingyuan pulled the last cart of bricks back, he saw Gu Yundong standing at the entrance of the workshop with a thoughtful expression. What is it? Gu Yundong stroked her chin and told him about her plan to expand the workshop. Shao Qingyuan paused and said, "Why don't we build another workshop and separate the white sugar from the sweets and canned fruits?" Build another one? Gu Yundong thought of how messy the sugar area was and suddenly felt that it was necessary. Alright, after eldest aunt and uncle's house is built, we'll get Shao Gao to continue building the workshop. There was no need to find another place. They could just build another house beside the Gu family's workshop. The 2 of them discussed the matters of the workshop. Just as they were talking excitedly, a familiar voice suddenly came from behind. Gu Yundong turned around and saw Lu Wei getting off the horse excitedly. However, what surprised her was that there was someone behind him. It was actually Euro Tao Yen. Gu Yundong could not help but look at Shao Qingyuan. Why is Tao Yen here? As he spoke, Lu Wei had already walked in front of the 2 of them. You guys have been back from the prefectural city for more than half a month and didn't even tell me. If I hadn't happened to come to your shop to buy things, I wouldn't have known. As he spoke, he looked behind them for a while. By the way, I heard that your uncle has been found too? Where is he? Gu Yundong was speechless. Why would you want to see my uncle? You don't even know him. I'm just curious. Gu Yundong ignored him and looked behind him. Tao Yen led his horse over and cupped his hands at the 2 of them. Young Master Shao, Miss Gu, sorry to disturb you. Third Young Master Tao, what brings you to Yongfu village? Tao Yen smiled and said, I'm here to look for Miss Gu. Coincidentally, young Master Lu was also coming over, so we traveled together. Shao Qingyuan frowned. Looking for me? Gu Yundong was surprised. She felt that she should not have any interaction with Tao Yen. Even so, Gu Yundong still brought the 2 of them back to the Gu house. After they were served tea, Gu Yundong asked, Third Young Master Tao, why are you looking for me? I remember the last time at Jinxiu restaurant, Miss Gu took out a handkerchief and showed it to young Master Peng. You even asked about the origin of the handkerchief, right? Gu Yundong's expression tightened when she heard the handkerchief. She clenched her fists by her side. She nodded and asked, yes, why did Third Young Master Tao suddenly ask about the handkerchief? Chapter 1166. How lustful Tao Yen smiled and said, back then, I saw that the handkerchief was indeed quite extraordinary, so I also took a few more glances. Especially when I heard young Master Peng say that the material of the handkerchief was rare, I subconsciously paid more attention when I saw it again. Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes. Again? Have you seen that material again? Tao Yan looked up and glanced at Shao Qingyuan. As expected, Gu Yundong did not unintentionally obtain the handkerchief. It should be special to them. Moreover, he had noticed the word Shao on the handkerchief at that time. As in Shao Qingyuan. However, looking at their expressions, Tao Yan realized that they were not completely secretive about this matter. That was right. If it was very private and they did not let anyone know, she wouldn't have asked Peng Zhongfei about the handkerchief in front of him. He sighed inwardly and said, "Yes, I've seen it again." He did not wait for Gu Yundong to ask again. This time, his answer was very straightforward. "A few days ago, I followed eldest brother to Jingzhou Prefecture for a business deal. The other party had a friend with him. The pouch hanging at his waist was made of this kind of fabric. At that time, I took a few more glances and thought that Miss Gu seemed to be very interested in this material, so I asked a few more questions. That person was a talkative person and really told me a lot about the material. Previously, young Master Peng said that cloth was rare and that was indeed the case. However, he was wrong about one thing. Ordinary people really don't have this material. Even if they do, they don't dare to use it. Therefore, those who can use it are all high-ranking officials and nobles. This has only happened in the past few years. If it was 10 years ago, there would be even fewer people who would use it." Gu Yundong's eyes sparkled. Few people used it 10 years ago? Brother Shao's handkerchief was from 20 years ago, so fewer people must have used it. Their range could be narrowed down again and again. Shao Qingyuan, on the other hand, was very calm. He took a sip of tea and said to Tao Yan, "That person knows what happened 10 years ago?" "Yes, that person's status in the capital is not ordinary. It said that 20 years ago, their Shao family was one of the top families in the capital. They had once made a great contribution and received a reward from the previous emperor. This cloth was among the rewards." Gu Yundong was stunned. "The Shao family?" She glanced at Shao Qingyuan and smiled. "They have the same surname as Brother Shao." "Yeah, that is the Marquis of Huayin estate." The old Marquis back then was a famous figure. Marquis Huayin, surnamed Shao, had obtained such fabric 20 years ago. Gu Yundong was slightly excited. Could it be that Brother Shao's identity was about to be revealed? She looked at Shao Qingyuan, and the meaning in her eyes could be seen at a glance. Gu Yundong thought that he would be as impatient as her. Unexpectedly, Shao Qingyuan said firmly, "Let's get married first." "But the wedding is at the end of August." "Get married first." Gu Yundong was speechless. All right, after the wedding, it seemed that she had to make a trip to the capital. However, she did not know if this Marquis Huayin was related to Big Brother Shao. She wanted to ask more about Marquis Huayin, but she didn't expect Lu Wei to suddenly exclaim, "Wait, wait, wait. What did I just hear? Did I hear something?" Gu Yundong was almost frightened by him. What did he hear? Did he have to be so thrilled? However, Lu Wei suddenly grabbed Gu Yundong's shoulders. Shao Qingyuan narrowed his eyes and quickly separated them, allowing Lu Wei to grab his shoulders. Lu Wei didn't care about this. It didn't matter who he caught. As if provoked, he shook Shao Qingyuan twice. "What kind of words did you say just now? Repeat what you said just now." Chapter 1167, This is related to me? Shao Qingyuan pushed Lu Wei's face away. No matter how excited he was, he couldn't spout nonsense, right? "Calm down. What did we say?" Lu Wei almost screamed. "You said you were getting married. You said you were getting married at the end of August, right?" "Yes, a euro. Why didn't you tell me such an important thing?" Gu Yundong's mouth twitched. Wasn't there still some time before the end of August? Did she need to tell him so early? But seeing how agitated he was, Gu Yundong felt that it was better not to provoke him. It was Shao Qingyuan who sneered and looked like he wanted to settle the score. "Did you inform us that you were engaged?" Lu Wei was speechless. He immediately felt that he was in the wrong and let go of Shao Qingyuan's shoulder guiltily. He took a step back and said softly, "It's going to be cancelled soon, all right?" This time, it was Tao Yan's turn to be surprised. When did you get engaged? Why didn't we hear anything about it? Are you breaking off the engagement now? Lu Wei suddenly came back to his senses. He pulled Tao Yan up and pushed him out of the door. Why are you so nosy? Go out, go out. Don't listen to what you shouldn't. Just like that, Tao Yan was pushed out of the door. Lu Wei closed the door in front of him without hesitation. Tao Yan, Shao Qingyuan pulled Lu Wei back and opened the door again. He said to Tao Yan, let's go to my house for a cup of tea. Tao Yan also knew that it wasn't easy to ask about Lu Wei. He didn't really want to know anything. He was just a little curious. Now that Shao Qingyuan had given him a way out, he naturally followed suit. The two of them turned around and left. Gu Yundong raised his eyebrows and looked at Lu Wei. He said, last time, your father said that he wanted to investigate the Zhang family. Have you finished your investigation? Lu Wei nodded. When he talked about this, he was still a little indignant. You don't know this, but that Zhang family is too despicable. I'm afraid that it'll dirty your ears if I say it. Although he said that, he still explained everything about the Zhang family in detail. Gu Yundong, my ears. However, after hearing Lu Wei's words, she was really shocked. It was simply an eye-opener. She did not expect the Zhang siblings to be able to play like this. My father was so angry that he was sick for a few days. If my sister hadn't stopped me, I would have gone to the Zhang family to beat them to death. Gu Yundong glanced at him from the corner of his eye. Fortunately, your sister stopped you. But since the matter has been investigated, why hasn't the marriage been cancelled? Of course, my father wants to withdraw, but how can things be so simple? Although the Zhang family is in the wrong in this matter, there's no evidence at all from the things my father investigated. Even if we expose it to the Zhang family won't admit it. Instead, they will accuse us. Gu Yundong frowned. Since your father has found out, how can there be no evidence? Zhang Hao's wife told my father about these things. His wife couldn't possibly testify for us, so the matter was tied up. After a pause, Lu Wei continued, actually, my father also beat around the bush and hinted to old Master Zhang that our family wanted to break off the engagement, but old Master Zhang was simply hateful. He actually threatened us openly and secretly, and as Lu Wei spoke, he stopped and stole a glance at her. Gu Yundong narrowed his eyes. Why? Does this matter have something to do with me? Chapter 1168. I have an affair with you. Lu Wei sighed and sat on a chair at the side, feeling a little dejected. He said weakly, it's all my fault. If I hadn't said in front of Zhang Jiao that you were better than her in everything and wanted to anger her to death, she wouldn't have hated you. My father said that if we took the initiative to break off the engagement, he would have to suspect that I was having an affair with you. His father did not tell old Master Zhang that he already knew about Zhang Jiao's scandal. He did not want the Zhang family to really use despicable methods to slander him and Gu Yundong. Zhang Jiao's notoriety could spread far and wide, but why should Gu Yundong be dragged down? Wouldn't he be at a disadvantage? Gu Yundong, therefore, she really wanted to smash Lu Wei's head. It was fine if he used her as a shield for no reason, but he had to say such things to provoke Zhang Jiao, who was abnormal to begin with. Even if he was telling the truth, shouldn't he be more tactful? So, Uncle Lu didn't want this matter to involve me, so he couldn't cancel the engagement? Lu Wei nodded, but quickly said, but don't worry, my father is thinking of ways to get evidence. He definitely won't let you get into trouble. Gu Yundong did not know what to say. She was not afraid of the Zhang family slandering her, and these things could be explained. However, she would still be plagued by trouble. Old Master Lu was thinking for her and did not want her to get involved in the Lu and Zhang family's matters. That was why he delayed the disengagement. It was just that the Zhang family was too disgusting. It seemed that they had to cling to the Lu residents. It did not matter even if they became enemies. Huh? Gu Yundong suddenly narrowed her eyes. The marriage between the two families would definitely be a good thing. Why did old Master Zhang seem to be clinging to the Lu residence? Gu Yundong reminded Lu Wei, ask your father to investigate the Zhang family again. I have a feeling that they are hiding some secrets. Yes. Lu Wei nodded. He stood up, as if his fighting spirit had been reignited. Of course, they had to continue investigating and find evidence to break off the engagement. However, after talking about the Zhang family, Lu Wei asked about her wedding with Shao Qingyuan. Knowing that it was the end of August, he immediately began to think about what to wear that day. As Shao Qingyuan's best brother, he would definitely come to welcome the bride on the day of the wedding. He was even thinking about how to deal with the bride when she made things difficult for him. Or should he build a good relationship with Gu Yundong's brother in advance? By the way, wasn't her brother Gu Yunshu? He was studying in the same school as Lu Yi. He wanted Lu Yi to be a spy and find out if Gu Yunshu had any strange ideas to make things difficult for them. His thoughts were wandering. When Tao Yan came back with Shao Qingyuan, he finally looked serious. Tao Yan glanced at him and didn't say anything. The two of them did not stay in the Gu house for long. Lu Wei came over to tell Gu Yundong about the Zhang family. After dinner, Lu Wei saw Gu Xiaoxi and finally left in satisfaction. Just as they left, Gu Xiaoxi was about to talk about the progress of building the house. Unexpectedly, just as he opened his mouth, Gu Yundong pulled Shao Qingyuan into the house with a serious expression. Gu Xiaoxi was speechless. Can't you see that I'm an adult? He went to look for his wife resentfully. At this moment, Gu Yundong asked Shao Qingyuan in a low voice, what did you say to Tao Yan? Did he say why he specially came over to tell us about the fabric? Chapter 1169, Who did you like? Gu Yundong admitted that he had no friendship with Tao Yan. They had only met once the last time. He had paid attention to the fabric for no reason and had even specially made a trip to Yongfu village to tell them that Gu Yundong did not believe that he was just bored. Shao Qingyuan was the same. He had indeed tested Tao Yan. Tao Yan's answer was very interesting. He said that he admires our abilities and wants to build a good relationship with us and make friends. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. Make friends? He clearly knows that we don't get along with the Tao family. I won my shop in the county city from the Tao family. Is he making friends? He wants us to owe him a favor. Yes. Shao Qingyuan nodded. From his words, I guess the Tao family's situation is a little tense now. Tao Yan had been brought back by Tao Feng for a period of time. With old Master Tao and old Madame Tao's hatred for him, his life in the Tao family would probably not be easy. Especially after hearing that the Tao family's recent businesses were not very good, and their profits were also declining. As such, old Master Tao believed that Tao Yan was the Tao family's nemesis. If he could not suppress Tao Yan and make him unable to raise his head, the Tao family would be finished sooner or later. The Tao family would also be very dissatisfied with Tao Feng. Some time ago, Tao Feng was in charge of most of the Tao family's business. Now, it was back in Tao Xing's hands. The Tao family was now completely divided into two factions. One group consisted of Tao Feng and Tao Yan, while the other group consisted of Master Tao and the others. If the Tao Feng brothers wanted to live a good life, they had to be in charge. The reason why Tao Yan wanted to befriend Gu Yundong was not necessarily because of Gu Yundong's ability, but because of the relationship between Gu Yundong and Qin Wenzheng. When Tao Feng found Tao Yan back then, Qin Wenzheng was a secret helper. Tao Feng should have known Qin Wenzheng's identity. So, they want to seize power and destroy Master Tao, but they actually want to borrow Qin Wenzheng's hand? That's the gist of Tao Yan's words. Gu Yundong touched her chin and sat on the chair. Shao Qingyuan poured her a glass of water and said, but the Tao family is involved in other matters now. Qin Wenjing clearly knows that there's something wrong with them, but he hasn't acted yet. I'm afraid it's not time yet. Gu Yundong sighed. So not only can we not become Tao Yan's helpers, but we also have to make sure that Tao Yan and Master Tao are not allowed to touch them? Why did she feel so uncomfortable? Shao Qingyuan nodded, but he changed his mind and said, Perhaps we can ask Qin Wenjing for his opinion. Shao Qingyuan felt that Qin Wenjing had not moved, perhaps because there was no movement from the Tao family. Perhaps he could alert the enemy? Gu Yundong obviously had the same thoughts as him. He looked up and the two of them looked at each other. They seemed to have a tacit understanding. At the thought of this, Shao Qingyuan's eyebrows moved. He couldn't help but lower his head and kiss her. He really hoped that the end of August would come sooner so that he wouldn't have to be so sneaky. Just as he was thinking about it, he suddenly heard messy footsteps outside. Immediately after, there was a knock on the door, followed by Gu Xiaoxi's panicked voice. Yundong, something bad has happened. Gu Yundong suddenly came back to her senses. She stood up and pushed Shao Qingyuan out. A trace of frustration flashed across the latter's heart. With an unfriendly expression, he went over and opened the door. Outside the door stood Gu Xiaoxi, whose face was covered in sweat. Chapter 1170, Pregnant Shao Qingyuan frowned. What happened? Gu Xiaoxi looked like he was about to cry. Yaya suddenly vomited. Then, her face turned pale and she fainted. When Gu Yundong heard this, she hurriedly got up and walked out. Why did she faint? Gu Xiaoxi shook his head. I don't know. At first, I thought she ate something bad, but why would she faint? As he spoke, he turned around and led the two of them quickly to his room. When they entered the house, they realized that Chang Yaya was indeed lying on the bed with a pale face. Beside her was Shinsidian, who had also heard the commotion and came over. She held a towel in her hand and was wiping the corners of Chang Yaya's mouth. Seeing Shao Qingyuan coming over, she quickly took 2 steps back to make room for him. Shao Qingyuan was now half a doctor. He could treat ordinary symptoms or take pulses. After all, he had stayed with more than 100 doctors in the Million Gold Pavilion for a few months. He did not forget anything he needed to learn. He sat on the stool by the bed and reached out to take Chang Yaya's pulse. Gu Xiaoxi watched worriedly from the side. She was so nervous that her hands were intertwined. After a while, Shao Qingyuan retracted his hand and frowned in deep thought. How is it? Gu Xiaoxi asked nervously. Is there something wrong with her body? Yaya has suffered a lot in the past and her health has always been bad. Is it now? Shao Qingyuan didn't say anything and reached out to take her pulse again. Gu Yundong hurriedly held Gu Xiaoxi back and told her not to speak. The room was silent except for the shallow breathing of the few of them. It was only when Shao Qingyuan retracted his hand that the 3 of them looked at him steadily. She should be pregnant, Shao Qingyuan said. He was actually a little uncertain. It seemed that she hadn't been pregnant for long, and the baby's pulse was faint. The 3 people in the room were speechless. What did they just hear? Chang Yaya was pregnant. Gu Xiaoxi was stunned. His entire body froze as he stood there motionlessly. When Gu Yundong finally reacted, he suddenly pushed him and said happily, Uncle, are you stupid? Brother Shao just said that auntie is pregnant. Gu Xiaoxi turned his head around in a daze and blinked. So I didn't hear wrongly just now. I am going to be a father? My wife is pregnant? Yes. Shinsidian smiled. Congratulations. The corners of Gu Xiaoxi's mouth were wide open as he suddenly rushed to the bed. Yaya, you, he stopped mid-sentence and turned to ask Shao Qingyuan worriedly, but why did Yaya faint? She even fainted when she was pregnant. Will she be all right? When will she wake up? It's fine. She'll wake up soon. She fainted because her body was weak to begin with, and she didn't receive good care because of the cold. She was too tired from building the house these few days, so she fainted. Only then did Gu Xiaoxi relax. Shao Qingyuan thought for a moment and said, but she hasn't been pregnant for long. It's better for you to take her to the county city's medical center and find an experienced doctor to take a look and confirm it. Shao Qingyuan didn't know much about gynecology. However, it seemed that he had to pay more attention to this aspect in the future so that Yundong could receive better care in the future. It was unknown if Gu Xiaoxi had heard Shao Qingyuan's words, but he just nodded vigorously and looked at Chang Yaya carefully. Then, he looked at her belly and smiled foolishly. Chapter 1171. Something forgotten. Gu Yundong secretly shook her head and heaved a sigh of relief. Uncle, take good care of little aunt first. Nourish her well later. Don't let her go to the new house for the time being. Gu Xiaoxi kept nodding. Gu Yundong thought that she should wait for Chang Yaya to wake up first. The three of them left him to take care of her and turned to leave the room. As soon as they walked out of the door, she saw Tong Shuitao walking over with a child in her arms. This child was the son that Madame Zhang had given birth to not long ago. Now that he was almost 2 months old, he was especially obedient. Usually, he did not cry or make a fuss. He only cried when he was hungry. Gu Yundong walked over and held his little hand. The little guy immediately grinned, revealing his pink gums. He was very happy, making her feel happy. Gu Yundong looked up and said to Tong Shuitao, "It just so happens that your mother has just given birth. There are some things pregnant women need to pay attention to. Let aunt ask her." Gu Yundong really did not know what pregnant women should pay attention to, but Madame Zhang had 2 children and was very experienced. However, Chang Yaya's health was indeed not good. Not only could she not overwork herself, but she also needed to eat something good. As she thought about it, she walked to the study and took a brush and paper to record it down. She planned to buy something in the county city another day. Just as she finished writing, she heard Chang Yaya wake up. Gu Yundong looked over and saw Chang Yaya and Gu Xiaoxi hugging each other and crying tears of joy. Chang Yaya felt an unprecedented joy well up in her heart. When she was young, she was despised by her biological grandmother. After her reputation was completely ruined, she thought that she might be alone in the future and it would be impossible for her to get married again. Unexpectedly, a calamity had caused her to meet Gu Xiaoxi. It was a blessing in disguise that she had found such a husband who doted on her. The Gu family was even easier to get along with. They were afraid that she would have no relatives by her side alone, so they took special care of her. She was about to have her own house and home. Initially, they thought that they couldn't be happier. They did not expect their child to arrive so quickly. Chang Yaya felt that if all the hardships she had suffered in the past 16 years could be exchanged for her current happy life, it would be worth it. Shao Qingyuan endured it and said, "She's pregnant. It's best not to have too many emotional fluctuations. She just needs to cry." Gu Xiaoxi came back to her senses and quickly let go of Chang Yaya to wipe her tears. Yes, yes, yes. Don't cry anymore. This is a good thing. You're not in good health to begin with. I'll brew some pregnancy stabilizing medicine for you later. You have to drink it obediently. Don't go to the new house. With me around, there will definitely be no problem. Chang Yaya nodded obediently. Gu Xiaoxi touched her stomach and became excited again. Oh right, I have to send a letter to my eldest sister and second brother. They'll definitely be very happy. They might even return to Yongfu village. Gu Yundong thought that eldest Aunt Gu would be back, but his father would be late. Still. Looking at the silly Gu Xiaoxi, Gu Yundong could only remind him, "Uncle, have you forgotten something else?" Gu Xiaoxi was stunned. Forgotten something? He lowered his head and thought about it. He told Chang Yaya to have a good rest and recuperate well. He told his eldest sister and second brother the good news and reminded himself to spend more time with his wife. Later, he had to ask Qingyuan what she should eat and ask the Zhang family about other things he needed to pay attention to. Other than these few points, what else was there? He raised his head and looked at Gu Yundong in a daze. Chapter 1172, Celebration. Gu Yundong sniggered in her heart. So you're stupid now that your wife is pregnant? She sighed and said, "It's your wedding." Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya were stunned at the same time, and the smiles on their faces instantly disappeared. Wedding? Yes, yes, yes. Wedding. Since Chang Yaya was pregnant, she could not wait until the end of August to hold the banquet. Although they had already signed the marriage contract and were officially husband and wife, in the eyes of others, the marriage contract did not count at all. They had to hold the wedding banquet before they could be considered married. If she waited until the end of August and Chang Yaya's belly became big, who knew how much gossip she would suffer? It would not be a big problem if they were to hold a banquet now and wait for the child to be born. Gu Xiaoxi couldn't care less anymore and hurriedly nodded. Then let's hold the wedding first. Independent Illinois, choose a good day this month. As he spoke, he stood up and squatted back down halfway. But I haven't prepared anything. The wedding dress is still. He looked like he was at a loss. Chang Yaya grabbed his hand and smiled gently. It's okay. We don't know many people here to begin with. We can just set up 2 or 3 tables. There's still time for the wedding dress. I'm actually already halfway done. Chang Yaya knew how to do needlework. Although she was not as good as Shinsidian, she had made the wedding dress herself. From the first day she decided to set up the wine, she had already started sewing happily. Gu Xiaoxi nodded repeatedly. He would agree to anything she said. Gu Yundong saw that they were discussing, so there was not much of a problem. Next, it was time to decide on the date of their wedding. It was not far away. Half a month later. Gu Yundong wrote a letter and asked Chen Jinbao and the others to bring it to the prefectural city for eldest aunt and her parents. As expected, the next day, Gu Dafeng carried her luggage and rushed back with the delivery team. It wouldn't be too late for Gu Dajiang to come back a few days before their wedding. As soon as Gu Dafeng arrived, she instructed Gu Xiaoxi, get Shao Gao and the rest to build your room first. This house is already more than halfway up. In the next half a month, they'll specially build your room. You'll definitely be able to live there before you get married. The wedding had to be held in their own house. If it was in the Gu family, it would be terrible. Originally, Gu Xiaoxi and Gu Dafeng's houses were built together. Both families were already halfway up. In this day and age, there was no such thing as formaldehyde. After drying it for 2 days, one could live there. It was already May and June, and the sun was already very strong. It was not a big problem. However, Chang Yaya was pregnant, so it was naturally better for her to stay in the Gu family. They would only stay in their new house for a while on the day of the wedding. Gu Xiaoxi immediately agreed. He turned around and started building the house with Shao Gao. With more than 10 people working together, and because the house was not very big, the beam would be installed in a few days. After 2 days of drying, it was time to decorate the new house. It just so happened that Chang Yaya's health had improved a little, so she planned to go to the county city with Gu Yundong to buy things. After all, she was getting married. There were some things that she needed to take a look at herself. Gu Yundong brought her and Gu Dafeng to the county city. She and Chang Yaya did not know much, and many things were handled by Gu Dafeng. It was just that when she bought stuff, she would ask for their opinions and see which one they liked. After walking around for half a circle, Gu Yundong was worried that Chang Yaya would be tired, so she wanted to find a tea house to rest. Unexpectedly, just as she got Gu Dafeng and Chang Yaya into the carriage, she saw a familiar figure from the corner of her eye. Chapter 1173, Affair? Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes and said to Tong Shuetao, take my eldest aunt and little aunt to the tea house to rest first. Order something to eat. I'll be back soon. As she spoke, she quietly followed the figure. When Gu Dafeng and Chang Yaya stuck their heads out, they only had time to see her back. Gu Yundong saw Zhang Jiao. In the past, she would not have cared about Zhang Jiao's appearance. However, the Zhang family wanted to slander her if their marriage was cancelled. She felt disgusted, so she decided to let her and Lu Wei break off the engagement as soon as possible. Gu Yundong didn't know where Zhang Jiao was going. She didn't even bring a maid with her. Gu Yundong raised her eyebrows. If she did something shameful, Lu Wei might have evidence to break off the engagement with the Lu family. She was a little excited just thinking about it. Gu Yundong followed Zhang Jiao silently, her heart pounding. Zhang Jiao did not notice anything amiss. She was very calm except for the fact that she did not have a maidservant with her. Not long after, Zhang Jiao stopped and walked into a restaurant. Gu Yundong looked up. Wasn't this Jinxiu restaurant? As soon as Zhang Jiao entered, Gu Yundong followed. The manager of the restaurant was especially familiar with her. When he saw her coming, he immediately wanted to greet her. Gu Yundong raised her hand and pressed it gently. The shopkeeper immediately understood and asked in a low voice, "Miss Gu, are you here for something? Where did that lady go?" Gu Yundong looked around but did not see Zhang Jiao. She was probably not in the lobby downstairs. As expected, the shopkeeper pointed upstairs and said, "In room 2. Room 2. What a pity. It's not the wing where I could have overheard the conversation last time." Gu Yundong sighed inwardly. She looked upstairs and continued to ask the shopkeeper, "Was there someone in that room?" "Yes, young Master Zhang is also inside." Gu Yundong's expression changed slightly. Zhang Hao was also here? Alright, they had an affair and came to her fiancé's restaurant. Wasn't he too disrespectful? He was simply detestable. When the shopkeeper saw her unfriendly expression, he felt uneasy and asked softly, "Miss Gu, is there a problem?" Gu Yundong waved his hand. "No, I'll go up and take a look." The shopkeeper wanted to say something but hesitated. From Lady Gus' expression, tone, and actions, could it be that she wanted to eavesdrop on others again? Sigh, how could a good girl have such a fetish? He had to find an opportunity to talk to the boss and ask him to persuade Miss Gu. Otherwise, if she developed the habit of eavesdropping on others at the Jinxiu restaurant in the future, their business would be ruined. However, Gu Yundong had already gone upstairs and was standing at the staircase. She frowned as she looked at the second room. What should she do? She did not know what was going on inside. It would be great if they could hug each other and do something indecent. That way, they would be caught red-handed. Gu Yundong took 2 steps at the staircase. When she saw the waiter serve the food, she almost reached out to stop him. However, on second thought, Zhang Hao and his sister had seen her before. Even if she disguised herself as a waiter, she would be recognized immediately. If she couldn't go in, she couldn't play the recording pen. Therefore, she could only watch as the waiter pushed open the door of the room. After bringing the food in, he came out, closed the door, and went downstairs. But just now, when Gu Yundong looked into the room, she did not see anything unusual about their actions. Chapter 1174, Very Strange Siblings. Gu Yundong secretly felt that it was a pity. She frowned and was at a loss. However, just as she was about to climb up to the roof to eavesdrop, the door to the second room actually opened. Gu Yundong immediately turned around and quickly hid behind a pillar. Sure enough, Zhang Hao and Zhang Jiao came out at the same time. Zhang Jiao said proudly, "Brother, don't think that treating me to a meal is enough as an apology." Alright. When we get back, I'll give you another gift, alright?" Zhang Jiao snorted. "That's more like it." As they spoke, they went downstairs one after another. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. She had not noticed it last time. Now that she knew that they had that kind of relationship, looking at their actions, they were really not as simple as being siblings. Their actions were more flirtatious. The problem was, if they were intimate, so be it. Why did they have to come to Jinxiu restaurant? Who were they trying to annoy? After watching the siblings leave the restaurant, Gu Yundong hesitated for a moment before entering room number 2. The moment she entered, the first thing she saw was the table of dishes. That's right. They came out not long after the dishes were served. That was strange. What was the point of ordering food and not eating it? Could it be that they came to the restaurant to talk? But in such a short period of time, they could not say much. It was very strange. Very strange. Gu Yundong glanced at the dishes on the table but could not see anything. She then looked around the entire room and felt that there was nothing unusual. It was a very ordinary room. Gu Yundong was observing when footsteps suddenly came from outside. She subconsciously wanted to hide, but after looking around, she couldn't find a place to hide. In the end, she bent down and went under the table, flipping the tablecloth down. As soon as she put it down, she spat at herself in frustration. Why was she hiding? It was impossible for the Zhang siblings to be back. What was there to be afraid of? Sure enough, the footsteps quickly entered the door. Immediately after, the waiter's suspicious voice sounded. They didn't eat much on this table. What a waste. Before he could finish speaking, another waiter seemed to come in and said with a smile, "It doesn't matter. It's better if they don't eat it. Let us eat it. Look at this chicken. It hasn't been touched at all. It was personally cooked by the master. Let's split it half each. We can bring it home at night and heat it up for the family at home to try." That's true. Gu Yundong hid under the table. Should she go out or not? It seemed very awkward to go out. The two young men had just discussed bringing the leftovers home, but they did not expect her to hear them. And how could she, Gu Yundong, who was beautiful and intelligent and had the demeanor of a big sister in front of Lu Wei, be seen under the table? If Lu Wei found out, wouldn't he laugh at her? At the thought of this, Gu Yundong calmly squatted under the table. She planned to come out after the two of them packed up and left. The two of them were very fast. Each of them carried out a tray. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. Just as they were about to come out of the door, a voice came from the door again. "Bring me a pot of tea." The person outside the door seemed to want to enter this room and was standing at the door talking to the waiter who went out. The waiter nodded hurriedly. "Please wait a moment. I'll change the tablecloth and serve tea for you later." Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. Damn it, you still want to change the tablecloth? Wouldn't she be exposed? Chapter 1175, Problem. Gu Yundong was anxious. Unexpectedly, the next moment, she heard the customer say, "No need to change. I'm thirsty. Hurry up and serve me a pot of tea." Gu Yundong was silent for a moment. Very good. I like this idea, but it's a little sloppy. However, why did this voice sound so familiar? Gu Yundong wanted to lift the tablecloth and look outside, but that person had already entered. He sat on the stool. Gu Yundong lowered her head and could only see his feet. The waiter outside the door left in a hurry. Not long after, he came in with a pot of tea. "Sir, your tea. What would you like to order?" That person waved his hand. "I'm waiting for someone. It won't be too late to order when my friend arrives." "All right, take your time. If you need anything, just let me know." "Okay, you can leave." The waiter left and the door closed. Only Gu Yundong and the customer were left in the huge room. Gu Yundong's legs were a little numb from squatting. She wanted to move but did not dare to. However, her mind was racing. Who was this person? The voice was really familiar. She must have heard it before. Before she could figure it out, this person suddenly put down his teacup, stood up, and walked to the side. Gu Yundong immediately held her breath. That person seemed to have walked to the door and was leaning against it to listen to the commotion outside. Then, he gently locked the door. With a click, Gu Yundong suddenly tensed up. What was this person trying to do? Just as she was thinking this, she saw that person walk to the table again. After drinking a glass of water, he turned around again. Gu Yundong could only see his feet and determine if his back was facing her. Soon, the pair of feet walked to the wall. From the direction of the shoes, the man was facing away from him. She didn't know what he was doing, but he started rustling against the wall. Gu Yundong endured it and finally lifted the tablecloth gently to look at that person. Gu Yundong only saw a back view, but she did not recognize who it was. However, she saw this person's actions clearly. He actually flipped over a calligraphy painting hanging on the wall and gently scraped it with a dagger. Gu Yundong narrowed her eyes. Was there something wrong with that calligraphy painting? However, right after that, she saw a slender piece of paper fall to the ground lightly. That person bent down. Gu Yundong was shocked. She quickly flipped the tablecloth over and quickly took out a mask from her space to cover herself. She stared at the tablecloth warily. Fortunately, that person did not notice her movements. He quickly picked up the note on the ground and walked to the table to read it. Gu Yundong did not dare to move. She only pricked up her ears to listen for movement. Unfortunately, nothing happened. After drinking the last cup of tea, that person stood up and opened the door of the room. The waiter quickly came over. "Customer, do you want to order?" "No need. Looks like my friend won't be coming." "Here is the money for the tea." That person threw a small piece of silver to the waiter and left in a hurry. The waiter scratched his head and could only come in to clean up the table. Unexpectedly, just as he picked up the teapot, a figure suddenly rolled out from under the table. The waiter was shocked and almost screamed. Gu Yundong quickly jumped up and covered his mouth. Miss Gu?" The waiter was shocked. "Why are you here? When did you hide under the table?" Chapter 1176, A Woman Who Had an Affair? Gu Yundong was anxious about the person who left, so he glared at the waiter and said, "You didn't see anything just now, did you hear that? If you dare to say that you saw me, they'll get Lu Wei to fire you, and let you go home to eat your own food." Then, she left in a hurry. The waiter looked like he wanted to cry but had no tears. He would not tell anyone. His mouth was very tight. Previously, he had discovered that Miss Gu was eavesdropping on others, so he had told the shopkeeper. Such a sincere, kind, and honest person was actually threatened by Miss Gu. He felt wronged. Gu Yundong had already rushed downstairs and left the restaurant. She did not even see the shopkeeper greet her. As expected, that person had not gone far. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. That person's footsteps were steady, and he did not seem to be in a hurry to do anything after receiving the note. He was very calm. When the other party turned the corner, Gu Yundong finally saw his face clearly. She couldn't help but narrow her eyes. It was him. The middle-aged man who had followed Tao Xing back then. A member of the Tao family? Gu Yundong pursed her lips tightly. The Tao family? The Zhang family? Tao Xing, Master Tao, Zhang Hao, Zhang Jiao. She suddenly recalled what Lu Wei had said to her. According to old Master Liu's investigation, Zhang Jiao wanted to marry Tao Yan back then, but it failed. Gu Yundong could not figure it out and could only follow behind the middle-aged man. However, when they passed by the tea house, she suddenly heard a voice coming from upstairs. She looked up and saw Tong Shuitao, who was drinking tea with Gu Dafeng and Chang Yaya on the second floor, greeting her. Gu Yundong immediately pressed her hand down. Tong Shuitao immediately understood and quickly turned around to go downstairs. Gu Yundong did not stop. She was still following behind the middle-aged man. Tong Shuitao ran a few steps before catching up to her. "Miss, what are you doing?" "I'm going to investigate something. Send my eldest aunt and little aunt back later. I'll go home myself. Don't worry about me." "Investigate something?" Tong Shuitao was eager to try, her eyes sparkling. "Miss, do you need my help?" "You're helping me by sending eldest aunt and little aunt back." Gu Yundong waved her hand. "All right, let's go." "Oh." Although Tong Shuitao was a little disappointed, she still obediently turned around and returned to the tea house. However, before she left, she still glanced at the middle-aged man who was being followed by her Mississippi. At that moment, the middle-aged man entered a shop. Gu Yundong looked up at the shop's sign. It was a grocery store. The middle-aged man only bought a paper bag and a pot of wine before coming out. He did not waste any time and quickly walked forward. Gu Yundong followed him for a short distance before entering an alley. She watched as the middle-aged man knocked on one of the courtyards. The courtyard door opened and a woman came out. When the woman saw the middle-aged man, she was stunned for a moment. Gu Yundong didn't know what the middle-aged man had said, but the woman's expression changed slightly. She immediately pulled him in with a smile, as if she was a woman waiting for her husband to return home. It was as if she was a woman who had an affair with someone. But Gu Yundong could clearly see that the moment the woman opened the door, the expression on her face was a little unfamiliar. Perhaps, she didn't know the middle-aged man. It was only after the middle-aged man said something that she instantly changed her attitude. Gu Yundong looked up at the courtyard wall. It was a pity that she probably could not climb over it. Chapter 1177, The Things in the Cellar. Fortunately, not long after, the middle-aged man and the woman came out. Gu Yundong quickly dodged to the side and lowered her head to wait for the two of them to leave. As soon as the two of them left, Gu Yundong stared at the courtyard door with burning eyes. After hesitating for a moment, she still hurried towards the courtyard. The door was locked. Gu Yundong glanced at it. It seemed that she still had to climb over the wall. She walked around half a circle and found a corner where no one was going in or out. She raised her foot and flipped in. As soon as she landed, her entire body tensed up. The courtyard was quiet. There was no movement at all. There were no flowers or vegetables in the courtyard. There were no chickens or ducks. It was clean. Gu Yundong walked inside and entered the central room. The central room was more lively. On the table in front of her was the wine pot and paper bag that the middle-aged man had brought over. There was also a cup of tea on the table. There were not many things in the entire house. After Gu Yundong finished looking at the central room, she went to the left wing. Other than the bed and cabinet, there were 2 boxes in the room. Other than that, there was nothing special. It was the same in the right wing. There were only a few pieces of the woman's clothes and daily necessities. Gu Yundong went to the kitchen again. The kitchen looked like someone had cooked before. There were 2 dishes on the table, but they were already cold. After walking around, there was nothing special about it. But why did that middle-aged man come in? He had never opened the wine pot and paper bag he carried. In this short period of time, it was not enough for him to be intimate with that woman. He must have come here for a reason. Gu Yundong suddenly recalled how he behaved at the Jinxiu restaurant. He had also ordered a pot of tea in a hurry and did not even order anything. In the end, he only wanted to enter the second room to get the note. He left after getting it. It should be the same here. He came in for such a short time and left, probably to get something. Gu Yundong's gaze wandered around the kitchen again and finally landed on the cupboard. She opened the cupboard. It was just a few sets of cutlery. However, just as she was about to close the cupboard, she suddenly realized that there was a partition on the ground beside the cupboard. This is a cellar? Gu Yundong's eyes lit up. She squatted down and opened the cellar door. She looked inside and after confirming that there was no danger, she went down. She widened her eyes in shock. This cellar was very big, even bigger than the 2 rooms above combined. At this moment, the cellar was filled with many things. Gu Yundong hurried forward and untied one of the bags. Rice? She walked to the side and untied another bag. Flour? Although they were not particularly good rice and flour but all miscellaneous grains, they were still good food. It was quite a lot. Gu Yundong pursed his lips and looked at the dozen big boxes beside her. She opened one of them and suddenly gasped. Silver, there was rice, flour, and silver, but they had to be placed in the cellar. Moreover, it was so mysterious and sneaky. It would be strange if there were no plots. Especially since the Tao family was involved, things might get out of hand. Gu Yundong quickly closed the boxes and tied the bags of grains again. Then, she left and walked towards the exit of the cellar. Unexpectedly, just as she reached the top of the stairs, she heard footsteps outside. They were very close and were directly at the kitchen door. Gu Yundong's expression changed drastically. It was impossible to leave this place now. Chapter 1178, Gu Yundong carried away making a prompt decision. Gu Yundong returned to the cellar and closed the door. She walked to a large box near the wall, opened it, and put all the silver inside into her spatial storage. Then, she crawled in. As soon as the box was closed, the cellar door was pulled open. Then, footsteps could be heard. Gu Yundong secretly left a small gap to see who was outside. Unfortunately, this position was not good. It was just a crack and things could not be seen at all. Fortunately, she could hear voices. There should be two people. One of them was the middle-aged man, but the woman from before was not around. The things are all here. Take a look. This was the middle-aged man's voice. His tone was somewhat fawning, as if he was treating Master Tao. Soon, an even deeper voice sounded. Not a lot. This voice did not belong to Master Tao. The middle-aged man explained, recently, due to the cowpox vaccination, the county has been especially strict. It's already not bad to be able to get these. Don't worry, we'll continue to prepare. Yeah. Seeing that he didn't say anything else, the middle-aged man heaved a sigh of relief. When will you move them away? Right now. Some of them first, the man said as he untied the cloth bag and began to examine it. Gu Yundong's heart tightened when she saw him approaching. She did not dare to leave any gaps and just curled up in the box. However, the words she heard before the box was closed made her a little worried. Move some of them first. Hopefully, they wouldn't reach her box. The middle-aged man said, all right, then I'll leave first. I'll leave this to you. Go out and explain to the people outside. Get someone to drive the carriage to the back door. Yes. Gu Yundong could not hear the rest of the sentence clearly. She did not know if the two people outside had left. She could only wait quietly in the box. However, the box was sealed. If one stayed for too long, they would lack oxygen, making it difficult to breathe. If this continued, she might not be able to hold it in anymore and open the box. Gu Yundong frowned. She closed her eyes and started rummaging in her space. After searching for a while, she saw the oxygen bags in the corner. She was instantly delighted and secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Previously, when she was hoarding medicine in her space, she would throw everything into her space. There were many portable oxygen tanks and bags used to deal with high-altitude reactions. They were finally useful now. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and tied the oxygen bag. Soon, there was a huge commotion outside. It seemed that several people had come. Gu Yundong frowned. Someone was helping them? It seemed like they were really preparing to transport these things out. She thought for a moment and took out a portion of the silver she had stored in the space. It wouldn't be good if they moved to this box and realized that it was too light and became suspicious. However, what she was afraid of came true. Gu Yundong quickly realized that the two boxes in front of her had been moved away. Immediately after, someone picked up the big box she was in. Gu Yundong wanted to cry. It was really an unlucky day. She had to be on tenterhooks wherever she went. The feeling under her body suddenly lightened. She knew that the box she was in had been moved out. Gu Yundong did not dare to move, afraid that someone would accidentally drop the box. She felt movement up the stairs. They must have left the cellar. Then, they walked forward unsteadily. In the end, the two of them lifted the box and carried it to the carriage. Chapter 1179. Sleeping out in the wild. Gu Yundong's head was hit and she almost cried out. After she recovered, she let out a soft breath. They should be outside now. She didn't know if anyone was guarding this place. Gu Yundong tried to hold it in, but she could not. She quietly pushed up the box, revealing a crack to look outside. To her relief, the box was placed in the carriage. And there was no one in the carriage. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and opened the lid even more. Then, she heard voices coming from outside the carriage. How many more are there? Gu Yundong was shocked and almost closed the lid again. This was the voice that had spoken to the middle-aged man just now. She finally understood that if she didn't want to expose herself, she couldn't go out at this time. However, she did not know where these things were transported to. What if? Gu Yundong struggled internally for a moment. In the end, she decided not to alert the enemy. She took out a packet of medicinal powder from her space. This medicinal powder was developed by Shao Qingyuan and had the effect of calming the mind and increasing the fragrance. The fragrance was mild, but it was enough for Big Black to keep track of. Gu Yundong pushed the lid open a little and listened. The voice was on the left. She opened the medicine bag and scattered the powder out of the window on the right. After emptying a bag, she scattered some in the corner of the carriage. Just as she retracted her hand, she heard the person outside say, "Why is there a fragrance?" Gu Yundong's heart skipped a beat. Damn it, why don't you get rhinitis? How can you smell it when it's so faint? Fortunately, another voice quickly sounded. This bag is filled with medicinal herbs. It should be emitted from here. Okay. That person nodded and did not say anything else. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief. She closed the box and retied the oxygen bag. Medicinal herbs. She didn't have the time to see them. Soon, she felt the carriage move, as if it had already begun its journey. Gu Yundong reckoned that these people might pretend to be merchants and leave the city gate. The food, gold, and silver in the cellar were not all transported. Unfortunately, she couldn't hear what was going on outside. She huddled in the box, hugging the oxygen bag as she sauntered forward. After an unknown period of time, Gu Yundong could feel that the speed had suddenly increased. They should have left the city. She was a little anxious. Fortunately, there were many goods in the car. No matter how fast it was, it could not be too fast. After a long time, Gu Yundong felt hungry. She took some food from the space and drank some water before continuing to travel unsteadily. The carriage did not stop at all. After a moment of silence, Gu Yundong realized that there was probably no one in the carriage. Only 2 people were driving on the shaft outside. Therefore, she would occasionally open the lid a little to let in some air and sprinkle some medicinal powder. Fortunately, she had brought a lot of medicinal powder with her, so it was convenient to store them in her space. The box she was in was also moved out later, so it was piled on top of another box. There was nothing above her head, so it was not troublesome to push open the lid. She just couldn't stretch her body, and her back hurt terribly. Gradually, the sky began to darken. Gu Yundong frowned. Why didn't the carriage stop? Just as she thought this, the carriage suddenly stopped. Gu Yundong quickly closed the box again, leaving a small gap. She vaguely heard someone outside say, "Eat something first. Well, sleep here overnight. Everyone, be vigilant." Gu Yundong's face lit up. It was good to sleep in the open. Chapter 1180, Drugged Soon. Someone shouted as they got into the carriage to get pots, bowls, food, and other things. Gu Yundong hid in the box and did not move. She waited until there was no movement outside before quietly opening a crack. The commotion outside lasted for a while before it quietened down. Gu Yundong vaguely heard someone instruct others, "The 2 of you will keep watch tonight. Be careful and don't fall asleep." "Yes, sir," 2 figures answered. Then, there was another rustling sound. Not long after, it was completely quiet outside. Gu Yundong exhaled slightly and listened carefully for a while before completely opening the lid of the box. He quietly lifted a corner of the carriage curtain and looked outside. The light on the left was a little bright. Gu Yundong looked at a fire not far away. These people were all men and were not particular. They directly spread some hay or hide beside the fire and lay down to sleep. There were not many people, about 5 of them. At this moment, their snores were already deafening and they were sleeping very soundly. There were 2 other people not far away. They should be on night watch tonight. What Gu Yundong found troublesome was that the 2 of them had been walking around the carriages. At this moment, she also saw clearly that other than the carriage she was in now, there was another carriage. The rest were 3 carts with food and medicinal herbs. She let go and turned her head to the window to her right. This side was much darker. Not far away, it seemed to be a forest. The branches were indistinct under the wind, and it was a little scary. After checking the environment, Gu Yundong looked away and frowned in thought. If she wanted to go out, she had to at least defeat these 2 people. Even if she couldn't put down 2 of them, she had to deal with one. But, How could she do this without arousing their suspicion? Gu Yundong stayed in the carriage for a long time but could not figure it out. Just as she was about to fall asleep, a voice suddenly came from outside. "I'm a little hungry. There's still some dried meat in the car. I'll bring it down. Let's eat together. That dried meat is very fishy. I don't like it. Go get it yourself." Gu Yundong instantly perked up. Her eyes darted around and finally landed on the pile of food in the carriage. Most of the food they ate was placed on this carriage. They had taken a portion previously, and some were still placed here. She quickly saw the dried meat. She immediately took out the laxative from her space and sprinkled it on it. Then, she quickly curled up and closed the lid. As soon as the lid was closed, the curtain of the carriage was opened. A man took 2 large pieces of dried meat and went out again. Fortunately, it was dark. The man did not notice that the dried meat had been sprinkled with powder. He picked it up and ate it in big mouthfuls. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief, revealing a slit. She could vaguely hear the voices of the people outside. "Are you really not eating it? This thing is not easy to get. It's already dried meat and doesn't have any taste. Eat your food. I'll look around." Gu Yundong waited quietly. Sure enough, not long after, that person suddenly grunted and pulled the other person over. "My stomach hurts. I'll go over there to take care of it. You watch over here first. Did you eat something bad?" "Probably. Oh my, I can't take it anymore. I'll go into the forest first." That person ran away quickly. The other person shook his head and placed the dried mutton back into the carriage to continue his night duty. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1181, Shao Qingyuan is here. Gu Yundong took this chance to climb out of the box silently. She wiped the laxative powder in the corner of the box and put the dried mutton that was stained with powder in her space. Then, she carefully pulled a corner of the curtain. Her gaze landed on the man on night duty. When he walked with his back facing her and her vision was blocked, she agilely got down from the carriage. The person turned his head quickly. Gu Yundong hurriedly lowered her body and slowly moved backwards. However, the person walked back. Gu Yundong's heart sank. She hurriedly lowered her body and shrunk to the side of the horse carriage. As they got closer, Gu Yundong shrunk smaller and smaller. Fortunately, the sky was dark, so the person didn't realize that there was another person hiding on the other side of the carriage. He walked over. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief and walked towards the handcart in front. It was as if she was walking in circles with the person. When the person reached the end, Gu Yundong finally found an opportunity to sneak into the forest. She knew that there was another person in the forest, so she walked in the opposite direction. Gu Yundong finally heaved a sigh of relief after she left this area. She's finally out. She started walking back. After a long distance, she stopped. Since she was already here, Gu Yundong wanted to figure out their destination. If not, she would have suffered for nothing. Actually, it was much more convenient to go directly in the horse carriage. She wouldn't need to walk at all. However, the box was uncomfortable. Eating and sleeping were alright, but a person had to answer nature's call, right? Gu Yundong found a rock and sat down. She ate some food and drank some water. She finally felt at ease. She wondered how her family was. Her eldest aunt and uncle would definitely be worried. However, with brother Shao around, he should be able to pacify them. However, she didn't know that Shao Qingyuan was riding his horse over hurriedly. In front of the horse, Big Black was rubbing its nose and trotting forward. Big Black was agile and smart. However, it had been injured before, so its legs were inconvenient. Thus, after running for some distance, Shao Qingyuan would carry him on his horse. He didn't set off too late. After chasing for some time, he got closer and closer. Gu Yundong soon heard the sound of horse hooves. It was soft, but it was exceptionally obvious in the silent night. She immediately stood up from the rock and ran to the bushes behind to hide. They sounded like two horses. She wondered if they were related to the group of people in front. Just as she was thinking about this, the sound of horse hooves got closer. Then, they suddenly stopped not far away from her. Gu Yundong clenched her fists slightly. She had already prepared the arrow in her hand. Shao Qingyuan, who was sitting on his horse, could only see the bushes moving slightly. It was as if someone was lying in ambush. He immediately took the bow behind his back and pulled the bow. He aimed at the pitch-black area. "Come out." His voice was cold. Gu Yundong, who was in the bushes, was stunned. She immediately put the arrow away and stood up happily. "Brother Shao." A smile appeared at the edge of Shao Qingyuan's lips. He put down his bow and leaped down from his horse. Then, he ran towards her with large strides. "Yundong, are you all right?" Shao Qingyuan held her hand nervously and touched her face. He then looked at her carefully. After confirming that she wasn't injured, he pulled her into his arms. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1182, Block his mouth. Gu Yundong stretched out her hand and hugged his waist tightly. "I'm fine. I'm fine." Shao Qingyuan's anxious heart finally calmed down when he saw her. He couldn't control himself and patted her perky butt. He frowned and said, "Why are you taking the risk alone again? Can't you come back and tell me first? I will accompany you wherever you want to go. If you meet danger when you're alone, I will regret it." Gu Yundong twisted her body awkwardly. She raised her head and snorted. "I didn't want to take any risk. The situation was a little complicated. I didn't have the chance to escape." She really wanted to go out and look for Qin Wenjing after seeing the things in the basement. Then, she didn't care about this matter anymore. But, when she was thinking of going out, the people outside came in. She could only hide in the alley and get carried into the horse carriage before coming here. Gu Yundong raised her head. She saw that he still had lingering fears and felt a little guilty. She touched his face. "I'm sorry. I will discuss it with you immediately in the future. I won't let you worry." Shao Qingyuan lowered his eyes and sighed secretly. He pressed her head against his chest and said in a hoarse voice, "If there's a next time, you will be grounded for half a year." Grounded? This was too cruel. Gu Yundong pouted. Just when she was about to refute, a shadow fell on her head. Shao Qingyuan bit the edge of her lips and snorted. "You seem unconvinced." He gave her a "you can say it if you're unconvinced, but let's see if they'll let you talk" look. Gu Yundong immediately shook her head. "I'm not." Shao Qingyuan felt a little regretful. Then, he lowered his head and kissed her unwillingly. He paused and kissed her again. Gu Yundong widened her eyes in surprise. "I've already said that I'm convinced. Why are you still blocking my mouth?" Shao Qingyuan wasn't done yet. However, the hem of his clothes got pulled, and he heard a whimper beside his ear. He and Gu Yundong lowered their heads at the same time and saw Big Black staring at him fiercely. Gu Yundong burst out laughing. She squatted down and touched Big Black's big head. She asked, "Did you bring Big Black to find me?" "Okay." Shao Qingyuan was unhappy with Big Black. This big fellow didn't realize who brought him up the mountain and into the wilderness for fun. Yet, it was a traitor at this crucial moment. What a heartless fellow. Tong Shuitao came to look for me after she went back. She said that you were following a middle-aged man who might be a bad person. I brought Big Black to the city and searched the area Tong Shuitao told me about. I found the powder you left behind and brought Wind Chaser along with me. Shao Qingyuan pointed at the two horses behind him. He didn't drive a horse carriage. It was more convenient for him to ride a horse. Who's that middle-aged man? Why did you leave the city? Gu Yundong pulled him to a rock at the side and sat him down. She knew that he had rushed over in a hurry the moment he heard her news. He must have never rested or eaten along the way. Thus, she pretended to take out a cloth bag from the bushes and passed the buns, pastries, and water bags over. Eat something first. I'll explain to you slowly. I took them from their carriage when I escaped. Eat them quickly. Big Black can eat some too. She took some dried meat and placed it in front of Big Black. The big guy rubbed his chin against her palm and started eating happily. Shao Qingyuan squinted slightly as he looked at the food in her hand. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1183, Everything Makes Sense. Did she manage to get the food from their carriage? However, if a normal person wanted to escape, they would focus all their energy on running. How could they divert their attention to search for food? There were so many items. If she brought them along when she ran away, they would become a burden easily. They might drag her down and expose her location. Shao Qingyuan knew that Gu Yundong had a secret. He knew it when the 4 jars of wine disappeared and reappeared on the way back to the Tao family. But if Yundong didn't want to tell him, he would pretend that he didn't know. Shao Qingyuan smiled. He took out a warm bun and stuffed it in his mouth. Gu Yundong lowered her head slightly and pursed her lips tightly. She continued feeding Big Black. After Big Black finished eating, she raised her head and told him about her encounter with Zhang Jiao and the middle-aged man. Shao Qingyuan listened and ate at the same time. His expression turned more and more serious. After Gu Yundong finished speaking, she couldn't help but guess. Do you think the Tao family hasn't made any moves recently because the Zhang family is helping them? It's possible. Qin Wenjing sent someone to keep an eye on the Tao family, but he didn't expect the Zhang family to be the one he should pay attention to. These 2 families are in cahoots. Gu Yundong rubbed Big Black's head and nodded. Also, according to Uncle Liu's investigation, the Zhang family wanted to marry into the Tao family at first. They wanted Zhang Jiaojiao to marry Tao Yan. Now that I think about it, it makes sense. Zhang Jiaojiao and Zhang Hao have an ambiguous relationship. If she marries Tao Yan will get betrayed by his wife again. He won't even have the face to go out after getting cheated on. Master Tao will then suppress him again and everything will go according to plan. Unfortunately, Tao Yan used some method and the marriage didn't happen. That was why the Zhang family had their eyes on the Lu family. The Lu family had a powerful background in the capital, and their background was the emperor's trust. If the Tao family was behind all this, it made sense. Everything made sense. Did you say that there's a lot of food, herbs, and silver in the basement? Gu Yundong nodded. Yes. Did you see any weapons? Not really. Gu Yundong noticed his serious expression and asked in a soft voice, do you suspect that they are preparing to rebel? The last word was very soft. Gu Yundong had no choice but to think this way. Only troops raised privately would need to transport large amounts of rations secretly. It looked like they had to make this trip and figure out where those people were transporting the items to. The current emperor was a wise one. She had a deep relationship with Qin Wenjing. Who knew if she would become a thorn in other people's eyes if the emperor was changed? There were some things she had to get involved in. After agreeing with Shao Qingyuan, Gu Yundong relied on him to rest temporarily. After dawn, the 2 of them led their horses and followed behind. Before Gu Yundong left, she tampered with the carriage. Hence, with Big Black's help, she had no problem tracking them. After following them for 2 days, the leader, Big Black, went straight up the mountain. Up the mountain? Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan exchanged glances with each other and followed it hurriedly. The journey was full of twists and turns. It was really difficult. The mountain got steeper and steeper. If Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan didn't run deep into the mountain often, they might have lost their way here. After walking for a day, they finally found traces of someone in front. They had caught up with the group of people. The group of people stopped at a slightly flatter area. Someone ran over excitedly. "You're back?" Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan raised their heads. The next instant, their expressions changed. "Why is he here?" Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1184, Do You Still Want to Go Home? Qin Shu. This person was Qin Shu. Shouldn't he be living a good life in that paradise in Qingyuan village? Why is he here? What's more, he's hanging out with these people. Gu Yundong furrowed her brows furiously. In her impression, Qin Shu was still the warm and hospitable young man who took out all the food he had to welcome them when they came out of the mountains. She gave him money, but he didn't accept it. In the end, he used it to buy food and cloth to distribute to the uncles and aunties in the village. Why was this young man, who had never been to the county city and was already excited when he brought them to town, here? Shao Qingyuan held her hand gently and said in a low voice, "Let's wait and see." Gu Yundong nodded. She pursed her lips and looked at the young man. Qin Shu was helping to move the items. As he moved the items, he asked, "Brother Sun, why did you buy so much food this time? We still have a lot here. It's enough to eat." Brother Sun was the leader who brought the cargo back. He glanced at the young man expressionlessly. "Do your work if I ask you to. Why are you talking so much?" The young man retracted his smile and shrunk his neck. "Oh." Then, he went to carry the food obediently. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan exchanged glances with each other. They stared at Qin Shu as he carried the bag and walked in. After some time, he hurried out and carried the next sack. When Brother Sun disappeared, the other person beside Qin Shu bumped into him and said, "You know that Brother Sun has a bad temper, and why do you have to speak to him?" Qin Shu was carrying a bag on his shoulder. He sighed when he heard this and said, "I just wanted to ask Brother Sun when I can go home. I've been here for 3 months. Why can't I go down the mountain? I want Brother Sun to bring me along when he goes down the mountain next time. You can eat your fill and wear warm clothes on this mountain, but there isn't even a place to buy things." The person at the side snorted. "You still want to go home? Don't you want to?" The person laughed again and shook his head. He ignored Qin Shu and turned to leave. Qin Shu stared at his back view absent-mindedly. Why did the guy leave before he finished speaking? Just as he was thinking about this, someone called him. He hurriedly carried his cloth bag and followed the person. Their conversation wasn't loud, but it still entered the ears of Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan clearly in the silent forest. Based on what Qin Shu said, he has only been here for 3 months. He doesn't know what these people do, Gu Yundong said softly. However, she heaved a sigh of relief in her heart. Shao Qingyuan nodded. Lure him over secretly later and ask him for the reason. The two of them waited quietly. The things in the carts were all moved in. Brother Sun ordered 2 people to pull the carriages down the mountain and went in himself. Qin Shu was the last to come out. He seemed to be guarding the forest here. He stood with another person and observed his surroundings at all times. Qin Shu was honest. He really stood there and did his job carefully. As for the other person, he sat on the rock for some time before he rolled his eyes. He used the excuse of having a stomachache to leave and never returned again. But this was convenient for Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan. Shao Qingyuan squatted down and found a small rock. He shook it and threw it on Qin Shu's back. Who? Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1185, Brainwashed. Qin Shu immediately turned his head vigilantly. He was holding a bamboo whistle in his hand, as if he would blow at the next moment. However, when he turned around, he saw two familiar figures. His eyes lit up and he was about to speak. Gu Yundong immediately raised her forefinger and shushed him. Qin Shu was stunned. When he saw Gu Yundong waving at him, he smiled and ran over. Sister Gu, why are y'all here? Gu Yundong immediately pulled him a few steps away. Then, she frowned and looked at him. I also want to ask you, why didn't you stay in Qingyuan village? Why did you come to the mountains? Qin Shu scratched his head and sighed. I want to see the world and see what it's like outside. Sister Gu told me many things in the past, and I want to see it with my own eyes. That's why I came out. I want to find a job and earn money myself. After I earn a lot of money in the future, I will go back and build a road leading to Qingyuan village. That way, it will be easier for the village head and the others to come out. Gu Yundong choked. If she knew this was going to happen, she wouldn't have said so much to him. Look, she managed to lure him out. Although Qin Shu's intention was good, he had been protected too well in Qingyuan village. He was already 14 years old, but he was still young. He didn't know that there were so many bad people outside, and there was no one protecting him. Does your village head know that you came out? Qin Shu shrunk his neck. Gu Yundong immediately understood. As expected, if village chief Qin knew about this, he wouldn't feel at ease letting him travel alone. He might be scolding her in his heart. Then why are you here? Qin Shu hurriedly said, I met brother Sun in the neighboring county city. He was busy moving the goods, so I went to help him. I even asked him if he needed manpower. I wanted to find a job. I didn't need a lot of salary as long as I'm provided with food and lodging. A little money is enough. Brother Sun promised me when he saw how hardworking I am. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan felt the corners of their lips twitching. Move the goods. Look at how hardworking you are. Did Brother Sun take you away because he was worried that you would spout nonsense after seeing what happened between them? Did he plan to silence you? In the end, he realized that this fellow was naive and easy to fool, so he decided to let him be a coolie in the mountain. As expected, Qin Shu continued, unfortunately, Brother Sun brought me up the mountain. They said that there's a lack of manpower here. The boss goods are on the mountain, so we need to help him with his business. He's worried that someone will steal his goods, so they need young people like us. The people in the mountain are not bad. They are very hardworking. They even said that we are a family and will help each other in the future. When I become successful, I can go back to the village and bring my uncle and auntie over. The salary here is high. I received 3 taels of silver the first month. However, I haven't got my salary for last month. I will have to wait for half a year before the money is given to me. Gu Yundong. Damn, isn't this pyramid scheme brainwashing? Did they know that Qin Shu was easy to fool because he didn't know the market price? This stupid young man. Gu Yundong couldn't help but hit him hard. What should I say? You didn't know that you got tricked, but you still think that he's a good person? Qin Shu was stunned. I got tricked? How is that possible? They gave me my salary. It's just a few taels of salary. You worked for him for 3 months for nothing. Gu Yundong couldn't help but feel fortunate. If they didn't come, Qin Shu might continue to be fooled. If this bunch of people were really plotting a rebellion, Qin Shu, who would become their partner in the future, would only have one ending. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1186. Stay. This was the first time this young man came out of Qingyuan village. He was filled with longing and yearning for the outside world. He wanted to come out and take a look, but in the end, he stepped into an abyss of eternal damnation. How poor was he? Gu Yundong tapped his head. These aren't good people. They gave you a month's salary because they wanted to hold you back. Gu Yundong treated Qin Shu as her younger brother. Hence, she patiently explained what this bunch of people were. Shao Qingyuan was staring into the distance. Fortunately, the other guard never came back. After Gu Yundong briefly explained what happened, Qin Shu was stunned. He widened his eyes in disbelief. His legs started to turn weak. Sister Gu, are you saying that these people, there are good people and bad people outside? You shouldn't have come here alone. Humans are unpredictable. A person who treats you well one moment might stab you in the back the next. Gu Yundong sighed. It's my fault. I shouldn't have told you about the beautiful things outside. Qin Shu shook his head. No, it's not Sister Gu's fault. I'm too eager to come out and take a look. His father died a long time ago and his mother remarried and left Qingyuan village. He wanted to know how good the outside world was for his mother to abandon him and run out to marry someone else. Alright, before they discover you, it'll bring you away. The village head must be worried about your safety. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan exchanged glances with each other. Then, they pulled Qin Shu, who was still in a daze, down the mountain carefully. Unexpectedly, after taking a few steps, Qin Shu suddenly stopped. No, I can't leave. Gu Yundong frowned. Why? Sister Gu, if what you said is true, Brother Sun and the others are all bad people. If I leave, they will know that I saw through their disguise. What if I go to Qingyuan village and harm the village head? Gu Yundong was stunned. She looked at him in surprise. She didn't expect him to think of this. Qin Shu, he was naive but he wasn't stupid. However, he was right. Brother Sun must have asked around about Qin Shu's hometown. If Qin Shu disappeared, Qingyuan village might be targeted. But she couldn't allow Qin Shu to continue staying here. Sister Gu, I want to stay. Since you and Brother Shao know their true faces, you can report to the authorities and ask them to catch them. That way, if I leave, Qingyuan village will be fine, right? Yes. But, since I know that they are bad people, I will be careful. Don't worry, I might be able to help. I'm truly worried. Gu Yundong was in a dilemma. On the other hand, Shao Qingyuan took a few more glances at Qin Shu and said, all right, you can stay. Gu Yundong looked at him in surprise. Shao Qingyuan said, Qin Shu knows the severity of the matter. Even if it's for Qingyuan village, he won't expose himself to danger, right? Qin Shu nodded his head fervently. He immediately felt that he had a huge responsibility. That's right, he didn't just need to protect himself. He needed to protect the villagers of Qingyuan village too. If he was exposed, all the people in Qingyuan village would be harmed. Gu Yundong glanced around him and hesitated for a moment. In the end, she nodded. All right, stay here. Be careful. After everything here is settled, I will bring you to see the real world. At that time, you will be able to earn more money and build roads for Qingyuan village. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1187, Uncle is getting married. Qin Shu smiled widely. Alright, it's decided then. It's a deal. Gu Yundong nodded. After a pause, she told Qin Shu some things and even gave him some stuff. Of course, she also asked Qin Shu about the situations inside. Although Qin Shu was an outermost guard, he knew quite a lot. Most importantly, it was because he seemed naive and sincere. He loved to ask others about the outside world. Other people would want to boast when they saw him asking for knowledge like an ignorant country bumpkin. It was easy for them to expose themselves when they boasted. Qin Shu was young, so he had a good memory. Thus, he told Gu Yundong everything he knew. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan really received a lot of useful information. Before she left, she told Qin Shu, continue to use this attitude. Pretend that you haven't seen us today. We will contact you again. Remember, nothing is more important than staying alive. If necessary, you can betray us. Qin Shu widened his eyes in shock. How can I do that? I don't want to. Shao Qingyuan said, you don't know much anyway. Qin Shu, Gu Yundong laughed. You don't have to tell the whole truth. You can fool them by telling them part of the truth. I understand. Gu Yundong was worried about him, so she reminded him a few more times. However, it was getting late, so she had to leave. Qin Shu looked at their backs from afar. The corners of his lips were tightly pressed together. He only went back to his original spot to resume his job unwillingly after they disappeared. However, he was still satisfied when he saw Sister Gu and Brother Shao today. He couldn't repay Sister Gu for giving them so much food and cloth. This time, he would definitely be able to do it. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan didn't waste any time after they went down the mountain. They quickly jumped on their horses and rushed back to Fengkai County. When they reached the county city, it was already the afternoon of the second day. The two of them went straight to Qin Wenzheng's school. At this moment, Qin Wenzheng was still teaching the students, while Yun Shu and Yuanji were studying in the classroom. Madame Gu entertained Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan. She hurriedly called Qin Wenzheng over when she heard that they had something urgent. Gu Yundong quickly explained what happened. Qin Wenzheng was elated when he heard this. So, the Zhang family is helping the Tao family? Yes. Gu Yundong nodded. She told him about Tao Yan's visit. Qin Wenzheng squinted slightly. He tapped his fingers lightly on the table and said, I understand. Send me the address of that small courtyard. I will ask someone to take a look at the basement later. As for those people in the mountains, don't worry. I will send someone to investigate again. Give me Qin Shu's portrait. I will ask someone to protect him secretly. Gu Yundong heaved a sigh of relief when she heard this. She stood up and quickly drew Qin Shu's face. She also drew Brother Sun's appearance along the way. She would leave the rest to Qin Wenzheng. He promised to protect Qin Shu so he wouldn't let anything happen to him. Qin Wenzheng turned around and ordered his men to do some things. Gu Yundong saw that it was almost time to leave school, so she decided to wait. She would go back with Yun Shu and Yuanji. Yun Shu knew that her elder sister was here, so she ran over happily. Sister, you're finally back. Tomorrow is Uncle's wedding day. If you don't come back, you won't be able to make it. Gu Yundong was shocked. She counted the days and slapped her forehead. Yes. Tomorrow was the big day. She almost couldn't rush back. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1188, Confession. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan hurriedly left the school with the two little kids. They went to Dongyi Academy to fetch the Nyodan brothers before rushing back to Yongfu village. As expected, the moment she entered the village, she saw Gu Xiaoxi's newly built house with the word happiness pasted in red. There were also red lanterns hanging in front of the door. The entire house gave off a happy vibe. It was the same for the Gu family. Tomorrow was the big day, so there were busy people everywhere. Eldest Aunt Gu stood at the door and gave instructions. Why isn't there a red cloth covering the wine jar? Shuetao, is the red cloth with you? And that chair, who's in charge of the red cushions? Oh my memory, a euro. As she spoke, she turned around and saw Gu Yundong and the others. She was elated and ran over. Yundong, Qingyuan, are you finally back? Eldest aunt. Gu Yundong alighted the carriage. Sorry to make you worry. Of course I was worried. If Qingyuan didn't say that you were busy with business, your uncle wouldn't have the heart to get married. Eldest Aunt Gu patted her. Oh right, your father came back yesterday too. He's inside. They walked in as they spoke. As expected, Gu Dajiang was standing in the central room. He was looking at a list in his hand, but he was frowning. He raised his head abruptly when he heard the commotion. The worry in his eyes subsided a little when he saw Gu Yundong. After a pause, he said to Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan, follow me. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan exchanged glances with each other and followed Gu Dajiang into the study. Tell me, what happened? The moment the door closed, Gu Dajiang raised his head and looked at them with a stern expression. I asked Shuetao, and she said that you followed a middle-aged man and never came back. I went to look for Master Qin later, and he said that you were helping him on a task and it's nothing serious. What's the matter? Gu Yundong was stunned. Gu Dajiang had just reached home yesterday afternoon. The moment he came back, he asked Tong Shuetao and then he went to look for Qin Wenjing again. He must be extremely anxious. However, Qin Wenjing didn't tell them about this. He didn't know where she went either. He probably told Gu Dajiang a lie to comfort him. He must have sent someone to look for her and brother Shao. Gu Yundong felt warm in her heart. She walked to Gu Dajiang's side and held his arm. She smiled and said, Dad, you're the best. Gu Dajiang couldn't maintain the stern expression on his face anymore. He pushed her head and said, tell me quickly. Gu Yundong coughed lightly. She didn't plan to hide it from Gu Dajiang. Her father was going to take the imperial exam. This was something he should know. The things he met in the future might be even more troublesome and serious. He should be mentally prepared. What's more, after these 2 years of experience, his father was no longer the ordinary villager who was suppressed by leader Gu and the others in the Gu village. Thus, she told him the entire story of the Tao and Zhang families. Gu Dajiang was stunned when he heard it. This was such a serious matter. He didn't know what to say for a long time. After some time, he finally digested all the information. He patted Gu Yundong's shoulder and said, you did well. This kind of treasonous and rebellious person who tried to destroy the peace of our country should be eradicated as soon as possible. He paused for a moment before frowning. However, Qingyuan is right. You can't take the risk alone the next time something like this happens. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1189. It wasn't instigated by Sister Gu Yundong immediately agreed. She promised that if this happened again, she wouldn't rush forward alone. Gu Dajiang looked at her. He wanted to say something, but he remembered that his daughter was getting more and more capable. She knew more things than he did, so he felt a little dejected. In the end, he left without saying anything. Gu Yundong was stunned when she saw him leaving. She asked Shao Qingyuan in confusion, what happened to my father? He knows that you're fine, so he's going to prepare for younger uncle's wedding, Shao Qingyuan said firmly. Gu Yundong felt that it made sense. Let's go and help too. That night, the Gu family worked very late. They were afraid that they would miss something during tomorrow's banquet. Gu Xiaoxi was so excited that she didn't sleep the entire night. She paced back and forth in her new house alone. She held the oil lamp in her hand and inspected the front and back of the house. Chang Yaya got married from the Gu family. She was pregnant so others could take good care of her in the Gu family. Thus, early in the morning, Chang Yaya dressed up at the Gu residence. She had just changed her clothes and put on her makeup when the sound of the groom came from outside. Gu Xiaoxi had only been in Yongfu village for a month, but he had a good personality and was young and energetic. He had a good relationship with the villagers. This time, not only did he bring Shao Qingyuan along, but he also brought Lu Wei, who loved to join in the fun, and the other 2 young men from the village. It was quite lively. Yin Shu and the other children were blocking the door with Tong Shuetao, Shuerong, and a few others. No one knew which side they were on, but they were extremely excited. They only opened the door after grabbing all the red packets in their hands. When Gu Xiaoxi came in, he pulled Yunshu's hair forcefully. I'll settle the score with you later. Fortunately, he brought a group of people with him. In the end, the ones blocking the door were some children. No matter how good they were, it was useless. They couldn't push the door with force either. What if they hurt the children? Yunshu took the red packets happily and snorted. I won't tell you that someone instigated this. Gu Yundong, who was standing not far away and watching the show. Come over here. I promise I won't beat you to death. As expected, when Gu Xiaoxi heard this sentence, he shifted his gaze to her. Gu Yundong looked up at the sky. The weather is not bad today. It's a suitable day to get married. Little uncle, you will definitely be able to live a happy life with little aunt in the future. Gu Xiaoxi pointed at her from afar. Don't forget that you're getting married in August. Shao Qingyuan, who was standing behind him, asked, Little uncle, are you making things difficult for me? Will you block the door for me? That's right, he was the one fetching the bride, not his irritating niece. Lu Wei laughed loudly behind them. He hurriedly pushed Gu Xiaoxi forward and said, Let's go and fetch the bride first. Gu Xiaoxi threw everything to the back of her mind and ran to Chang Yaya's room in a hurry. Chang Yaya was wearing a red wedding gown with a red veil covering her head. No one could see what she looked like. However, her hands on her knees were clenched tightly. She was extremely nervous too. Gu Xiaoxi was already standing at the door. He stopped in his tracks instantly and scratched his head as he laughed awkwardly. The other people were elated. The matchmaker even shook her handkerchief and said happily, The groom is shy. I think so too. Everyone in the room laughed. He only regained his senses after Gu Dafeng pushed him. He squatted down and carried Chang Yaya on his back. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1190, Wedding Ceremony. There was a large red sedan parked outside the Gu residence. Gu Xiaoxi had rented it. He didn't have the ability to buy it, but he still wanted to give Chang Yaya the best. Many people were looking at them. A lot of young wives were envious. When Lan Huar got married, she had a bridal sedan chair too. This was the second one in Yongfu village. The bridal sedan was much better than an ox cart or a donkey cart. 4 people lifted the bridal sedan and followed behind Gu Xiaoxi, who was riding a horse. They circled the Yongfu village and finally stopped outside his new house. Gu Dafeng had already arrived at the new house. She welcomed the guests warmly. Gu Xiaoxi didn't know many people, so he didn't invite many guests. Besides the Gu family, the Bian family, and the Shao family, there were also Dong Xiaolan's family, the village head's family, and the highly respected 6th grandfather. Finally, there were the people who helped them to build his house and their families. The courtyard was filled to the brim. There were around 5 to 6 tables. Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya were already extremely satisfied. The bride was brought in. Gu Dajiang was the eldest brother and the host of this wedding. Gu Dajiang felt comforted when he saw the 2 of them stepping through the door. Little Six had finally grown up. He had a family of his own. The 2 of them stood in the central room. The male helper sang and the newlyweds started the ceremony. 1 bow to heaven and earth. 2nd bow to the parents. 3rd bow to each other. Their parents weren't around, so Gu Xiaoxi and Chang Yaya bowed in the direction outside the door and completed the ceremony. They were finally sent into the bridal chamber. After some time, Gu Xiaoxi was pulled out to drink with them again. Gu Yundong secretly carried the bowl of noodles into the new room. Chang Yaya's veil was lifted and she was sitting upright with a tinge of red on her face. When she saw Gu Yundong walking in, she hurriedly stood up. Yundong. Auntie, have a seat first. She placed the bowl and chopsticks on the table. You're pregnant. You haven't eaten for a day, right? Uncle asked me to bring you some noodles. Eat them first. Chang Yaya nodded. She sat in front of the table and took a few bites. Then, she smiled. You brought it yourself, right? I know your uncle. Although he knows how to take care of me, he's very careless. Everything was so noisy today that he felt dizzy. He can't possibly think of sending me noodles. Gu Yundong sat opposite her and smiled. Who says that? Uncle might be dizzy today, but he reminded me repeatedly yesterday that my mission today is to look after you and take good care of you. Isn't it my uncle's order for me to send you noodles? Chang Yaya laughed because of her. However, she felt sweet in her heart. Now, she had fallen into the lap of fortune. Gu Yundong accompanied her and chatted with her. She only helped her to the bed after she finished her noodles. I don't know when my uncle will come back. You can sleep first. I'll ask Shui Tao to guard outside. Don't worry, they won't dare to tease the bride today. Shao Qingyuan wouldn't. Lu Wei knew Chang Yaya's situation, and the other people weren't close to Gu Xiaoxi. Hence, Chang Yaya could rest properly. Gu Yundong covered her with the blanket before leaving the room. She carried the bowl and chopsticks to the kitchen. A lady who was helping in the kitchen pulled her back immediately. Hey, Yundong, don't leave yet. Come over and let me ask you something. Source. Com, updated by Novlove. Com if you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1191, August. Gu Yundong was stunned. What is it? The lady was curious. Didn't you say that you will get married on the same day as your uncle? Why is your uncle's wedding so early? This lady didn't have any evil intentions. She was just a little curious and gossiping. Gu Yundong thought to herself, this is a good chance for me to get her name registered. I don't want other people to make guesses. Many people were talking about it when they stood at the entrance of the Gu residence today. Hence, she said to the lady patiently, at first, we wanted to get married together, but one of my father's masters said that this isn't appropriate. There's no reason for an uncle and a niece to get married on the same day. No matter how I look, I have to let my uncle get married first. As a result, we can only go our separate ways. As she spoke, she said regretfully, after that, we started calculating the days. This is the best day before August, so we were in a hurry. Fortunately, everything is in place, the house is built, and the gifts are all ready. The lady nodded fervently. That's right. I've already said that it's hard for uncle and niece to get married on the same day. However, today is a good day. There's a couple getting married in the neighboring village. Gu Yundong smiled. That's right. Thank you for your hard work today. You can continue your work first. When you go back later, come to the central room to get some gifts. Sure, okay. Gu Yundong walked out of the kitchen and heaved a sigh of relief. The courtyard was still very lively. With Lu Wei around, no matter how cold the atmosphere was, it would be lively. Gu Yundong couldn't bear with it anymore when she saw Gu Xiaoxi getting forced to drink. She asked Shao Qingyuan to pull Lu Wei out. Little aunt is pregnant. What if little uncle is unconscious from the alcohol and hurts her accidentally? Shao Qingyuan felt that it made sense. He went forward and pulled Lu Wei to the side. This fellow wasn't happy. After getting glared at by Gu Yundong, he finally understood. He immediately dashed towards the crowd that was still persuading him to drink. He shielded Gu Xiaoxi and said, all right, it's already so late. Let's not disturb their bridal chamber. We're not drinking anymore. Lu Wei was the eldest young master of the Lu family in the city. Naturally, the villagers felt respect towards him. Earlier, Lu Wei was the one who persuaded him to drink. Now that he had given up, the other villagers stopped fooling around. Gu Xiaoxi let out a long sigh. Shao Qingyuan helped him back to his room. The remaining people continued eating and drinking. They only dispersed after a long time. Gu Yundong and Shao Qingyuan were the last to leave the new home. It was already dark outside. Shao Qingyuan held her hand and suddenly said, 2 more months. 2 months later, it was their wedding day. It wasn't long, but Shao Qingyuan felt that it was as long as 2 years. Gu Yundong looked up at the night sky and smiled. Think about how many red packets you should prepare on the day of the wedding. Shao Qingyuan turned his head. You're gloating. For the next few days, Gu Yundong stayed in Yongfu village. After Gu Xiaoxi's house was built, it was time for the Bian family's house. Gu Xiaoxi and Cheng Yaya came back to the Gu residence. They could recuperate in peace. After the Bian family's house was built, they started building the workshop. Many villagers guessed that the Gu family was going to hire more long-term workers when they saw this. The nearby villagers started running around to spread the news. After a busy period of time, the hot August finally arrived. Source: Com, updated by Novlove. Com. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know to report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1192, Court Examination. August was destined to be a busy and fulfilling month for the Gu family. At the start of the month, it was time for Gu Dajiang to participate in the court examination. Once he passed the exam, he would become an official elementary scholar. When he entered the exam venue, Gu Yundong and the others still went to the prefectural city. There were 2 rounds of the court examination, including the formal exam and the second exam. Each exam lasted an entire day. It wasn't difficult. Gu Dajiang entered the exam venue confidently. When he came out, he was full of smiles too. It looked like there wouldn't be a problem. This matter was over after the exam. He just needed to wait for the results to come out. Gu Dajiang asked Gu Yundong to go back to Yongfu village. The construction of the new workshop had been completed not long ago, and the workers had been hired. There were many people. After all, they weren't just needed in the new workshop. They also needed to buy goods and plant fruits. 2 months ago, after Gu Xiaoxi got married, he bought 3 acres of land. He said that he didn't know how to do business and didn't have any skills. The only thing he was good at was farming. Gu Yundong didn't stop him. Her uncle had his own choice, even though she had once suggested that he work in the workshop. At that time, Gu Yundong also bought a large piece of land from a nearby village to grow sugar cane. Hence, there were at least 200 to 300 people under Gu Yundong's command. There were many things to settle and it was much more complicated. Besides promoting a few capable people to be managers, she also needed to recruit knowledgeable people. Thus, Gu Yundong brought little Kiki back to Yongfu village first. Unexpectedly, the moment she reached home, Chen Liang came over. There was excitement in his eyes as he looked at her. Yundong, your father has completed the court examination, right? How's his result? Did he pass? Gu Yundong was caught between laughter and tears. Uncle Chen, he just left the exam venue yesterday. His results will only be out in 5 to 6 days. How can it be so fast? Another 5 to 6 days? Chen Liang was a little disappointed. Madame Zhou, who came with him, rolled her eyes uncontrollably. I think your Uncle Chen is even more nervous than your father. He hasn't slept properly for the past 2 days. He keeps tossing and turning at night as if he went to take the elementary scholar exam. What do you know? Under his leadership, Yongfu village was thriving. Everyone's life was getting better and better. No one lacked meat anymore. Now that he had the money, he should look for other things. Yongfu village didn't have a single elementary scholar now. Madame Zhou snorted. Why don't I understand? Think about the ranking of Gu Dajiang in the county exam and the prefecture examination. He's already a confirmed elementary scholar. I don't know why you're panicking. That's different. Different how? Chen Liang couldn't reason with her. He flicked his sleeve and left. Madame Zhou snorted at his back view. Then, she turned and said to Gu Yundong, ignore him. He must be crazy to be the village head. Especially now that his life was good, his 2 sons had work to do and his grandsons were studying in school. There was less work in the field, so he didn't have to worry about anything. All he did was ponder over the matters in the village. Not long ago, he wondered if he should open a private school in the village. Oh right, Yundong, when are you going to buy mooncakes? It's almost the Mid-Autumn Festival, so I want to buy something good this year. I'll go with you. You have good taste, so the mooncakes you buy will be good too. Gu Yundong smiled when she mentioned the Mid-Autumn Festival. I don't plan to buy mooncakes outside. I want to make them myself. However, our workshop is distributing mooncakes. We need to buy those mooncakes in the city. We have already reserved them from a shop. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1193, Making My Own Mooncakes MS. Zhou was stunned. Do it himself? She was a little intrigued, but she knew that Gu Yundong's cooking skills were good. If she said that she would do it herself, it might be the kind of secret prescription that wasn't available outside. She couldn't just ask for it. Hence, she asked, which shop did you reserve from? The Zhang family? The Zhang family? Gu Yundong smiled and shook his head. No, it's not the Zhang family. It's a new shop and isn't famous. However, the pastries they make are delicious. In the past, Tong and specially went to take a look. The place where they make mooncakes is clean too. I tried one. It tastes better than the Zhang family's. I hope that they will have a place in the city in the future. However, Madame Zhou didn't think so. Everyone knew that the Zhang family's business was the most prosperous in Fengkai City. In the past, there were many new shops that made many novel pastries. In the end, the Zhang family bought all the secret recipes. The Zhang family was the largest pastry shop in Fengkai County. However, this was between them. The Zhang family hadn't laid their eyes on the pastry shop, so the price of the pastries there wasn't high. With Gu Yundong's guarantee, Madame Zhou believed that the mooncakes would be delicious. Hence, Madame Zhou nodded quickly. All right, I'll order mooncakes from this shop too. Gu Yundong asked curiously, Qingyuan Kai and Qingyuan Bao will have mooncakes when the workshop distributes them. Why do you still want to buy mooncakes? Hey, we have many relatives and friends, right? Our family is living a good life now, and we have many guests. We should give them some good treatment, right? She sounded proud. In the past, Madame Zhou was proud too. After all, her husband was the village head, but her family didn't have much money. Now, she could buy anything she wanted. Her sons were promising and filial. She was extremely proud. Gu Yundong smiled. All right, I will ask Tongan to buy more for you. All right, thank you. I'll go back first. Madame Zhou saw that she was tired after coming back, so she went back after a few sentences. On the other hand, Kiki looked at her excitedly. Sister, are we making mooncakes ourselves? That's right. Do you want to learn? Yes, yes. Gu Yundong hurriedly held her chin when she saw her nodding her little head too forcefully. She laughed and said, I knew that you're a foodie. I'll look for you after I have the ingredients. Okay. The young lady grabbed her hand with her soft little hand and walked into the house happily. The next day, Gu Yundong went to buy ingredients. Then, she brought Kiki and Shinsidian to the kitchen to get busy. Chang Yaya took a stool and sat at the door to help pick up the green beans. Gu Yundong planned to make ice cream mooncakes. She had prepared the molds. Last year, during the Mid-Autumn Festival, she wasn't at home and the mooncakes weren't made. This year, she mustn't miss it. Kiki took the molds and looked at them curiously. She widened her round eyes and asked, Sister, what are these? You will know in a while. Gu Yundong poured a bowl of glutinous rice noodles and said to her, Come, add some water for me. Okay. The young lady hurriedly put down the molds and ran to her side. She grabbed the water ladle and carefully released the water bit by bit. Gu Yundong was extremely patient. She waited for her to take her time. This young lady loved to cook. She might be able to work in this trade in the future. However, she was still young. She would take her time and see if she could find a master chef in the future. After filling the water, the young lady raised her head and smiled at her with her small mouth. Her soft and cute voice melted Gu Yundong's heart instantly. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1194. The one in her body is a little brother. Gu Yundong mixed the batter and left it there. Then, she started making the filling. The young lady secretly took some and stuffed one in her mouth. Then, she ran to Chang Yaya's side and stuffed one into her mouth. Little aunt, my younger brother wants to eat. Chang Yaya smiled. The young lady always said that the child in her stomach was a little brother. There was an old saying that children had spiritual power, so they could tell if the child was a boy or a girl. That was why Chang Yaya was happy when the young lady called it little brother. It wasn't that she didn't like girls, but if the firstborn was a boy, it would be much easier for her whether she had boys or girls in the future. At least no one would gossip. Gu Yundong felt that it was hard to say. However, everyone was thinking the same thing now. She couldn't change this deep-rooted thought. Also, Chang Yaya was always elated when she heard Kiki talking about her younger brother. If Gu Yundong stopped her, she might think that there was something wrong with the baby's gender. After all, Chang Yaya's body was weak and her pregnancy wasn't stable. The only thing she could do now was to enlighten her and remind her uncle so that he could express that he liked both boys and girls. Actually, Gu Xiaoxi preferred girls. One could tell it from his attitude towards Kiki. He loved to hug her the moment he came back. Sometimes, he even angered the young lady. Gu Yundong glanced at Chang Yaya and noticed that her eyes were indeed smiling. Her mood seemed to have gotten better, so she kept quiet. She turned and continued making mooncakes. In the afternoon, the finished mooncakes filled up the entire central room. The amount she made was a little big. After all, there were many people in the family, so she had to give some to others. Fortunately, she didn't do all the work by herself. Later, Shao Qingyuan came over and she passed all the laborious work to him. Gu Yundong didn't feel anything wrong about it. Shao Qingyuan glanced at her from the corner of his eyes and started working without any complaints. After they were done, she asked someone to send some mooncakes to the Zhang family, Chen Liang's family, and the sixth grandfather's family. As for the Lu family in the county city, as well as the Nie family and the Dai family in the prefecture city, Gu Yundong asked Chen Jinbao to deliver the goods the next day. When Chen Jinbao came back, he didn't just bring return gifts from those families. He also brought the mooncakes she ordered in the city. The people in the workshop got excited when they saw the 2 carts filled with items. Especially the workers who were just recruited last month. Their eyes lit up. They had long heard that the Gu family workshop would send gifts every holiday, especially during the New Year. The New Year's goods were even more sumptuous than the ones they bought at home. One look and you could tell that these mooncakes were extraordinary. As expected, Tong'an waited for the carriage to go to the Gu residence. Then, he entered the workshop and said to everyone, "It's almost the Mid-Autumn Festival. Everyone has been working hard these few days. Hence, the boss has decided to give everyone 2 tubes of mooncakes to bring back to celebrate the reunion with your families." Oh, the crowd got lively. Every time their boss gave them something, they would feel as if they had hit the jackpot. They were extremely excited. Tong'an smiled and shook his head. He continued, "After work in the afternoon, everyone will go to the entrance of the Gu residence and line up to receive the mooncakes. Don't be late. Keep order. Do you hear me?" "Yes, Manager Tong." Tong'an waved his hand and left. At this moment, there was already a queue at the entrance of the Gu residence. Gu Yundong placed tables and chairs in the front courtyard and asked them to come up one by one to take the mooncakes after registering their names. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1195. He did it. The workers in the workshop had to finish their job first, but the fruit farmers in the garden didn't need to wait. To prevent them from getting crowded with the workers later, Gu Yundong asked Zhou to bring them over first. The experienced fruit farmers were calm, but the newbies were whispering to each other excitedly. However, when they received the mooncakes, their expressions turned strange. They didn't say anything in front of Gu Yundong. They only gathered together and started discussing softly after they walked out of the door. Why haven't I seen such mooncakes before? Aren't they from the Zhang family? No, the Zhang family's mooncakes have different packages. I've never seen them before. The other pastry shops in the city aren't like this either. Really? Did she buy them from the prefectural city? In your dreams. How can they be transported back from the prefectural city? I've asked around. Chen Jinbao and the others came back from the city. Sigh, I thought that it was Zhang's mooncakes. I've been waiting for them for a long time. I told my children the same thing. They're waiting for me to bring the mooncakes back, but the Gu family is quite wealthy, right? Why don't they buy Zhang's mooncakes? Or did they hire too many people this time so they bought something cheaper? Zhou came out just in time to hear these words. His face turned black. What nonsense are you spouting? Did the boss give you the wrong mooncakes? Go and ask around. Which boss sends things to you like our boss? You need to be contented. If you don't want them, give them back. There are people who want them. The other people touched their noses in embarrassment. Brother Zhao, we don't have any other intention. We just didn't expect it. Let's not talk anymore. We promise that we won't talk anymore. We know that Boss Gu is great. If not, we wouldn't be trying so hard to come to the Gu family, right? That's right, Brother Zhao. Please don't tell Boss Gu. We're extremely grateful to her. Really? Zhou snorted. After all, those people were fruit farmers working outside. They were different from the long-term workers in the Gu family's workshop. Those people were new and not under Gu Yundong's command. They didn't know Boss Gu's ability and methods, so they didn't have much respect for her. In summary, it was his fault. His son was right. He should have established the authority of the Gu family on the first day those people came. Just as he was thinking about this, he saw Chen Liang suddenly running over furiously. He was already so old, but he was jumping around like a rabbit. When he ran in front of Zhao, he almost tripped over the door and fell to the ground. Zhao hurriedly held her up. Village Chief Chen, why are you in such a hurry? You're already so old. Shouldn't you be more careful? Chen Liang waved his hand and panted heavily. He couldn't even speak. Zhao noticed that he was in a hurry, so he quit warning the fruit farmers and helped Chen Liang into the house. Chen Liang pounced on Gu Yundong when he saw her still registering. Gu Yundong jumped in fright and leaned back abruptly. Fortunately, Shao Qingyuan raised his hand and held her up. Gu Yundong patted her chest. Uncle Chen, what's wrong with you? Is there a dog chasing you? The moment she finished speaking, Big Black barked twice in the corner. Gu Yundong laughed uncontrollably. Chen Liang was finally able to catch his breath. His eyes were astonishingly bright, as if he wanted to eat someone alive. He shouted in an unprecedentedly loud voice. He did it. Ha ha ha, he did it. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know it report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1196, Subsidized. Elementary Scholar Chen Liang's words were baffling. Whether it was Gu Yundong, Shao Qingyuan, or the other fruit farmers who were collecting mooncakes, they all looked at him in confusion. Chen Liang swallowed hard and repeated, your father has won. He has become an elementary scholar. Gu Yundong's eyes lit up and she stood up immediately. Really? The rankings are out? Although she knew that her father was definitely fine, Gu Yundong was still extremely excited to hear such accurate news. Chen Liang nodded repeatedly. The result is out. I met the messenger at the entrance of the village just now and they told me the good news. I rushed back to tell you the great news first. Oh right, quickly prepare silver for them. The messenger will be here soon. The onlookers were stunned, but they all understood now. There was an uproar. Is old Master Gu an elementary scholar? Io, this is really a great thing. Congratulations, Boss Gu. By the way, Village Chief Chen, what rank did Master Gu get? What rank? Qin Liang was stunned for a moment before he smiled awkwardly. I was too excited. When I heard that Brother Dajiang had one, I ran back happily. I forgot to ask them. It's fine, it's fine. Well, know when the messenger comes later. Gu Yundong hurriedly asked Tong'an to sit at the table and register the mooncakes while she ran into the house to get the money. However, how could anyone be in the mood now? The queue that was originally well lined up immediately dispersed. Everyone squeezed to the door and looked at the main road anxiously and expectantly. This was a joyous occasion for Yongfu Village. Not to mention Yongfu Village, how long had it been since an elementary scholar appeared in the vicinity? There were only 2 old elementary scholars in the 2 neighboring villages. There were not many scholars left. When Gu Yundong took out the silver, Gu Xiaoxi and the others had already heard the commotion and ran over. They also squeezed to the front of the door excitedly with everyone. Closer, closer, they could see the messengers. Everyone was excited as they stared at the 2 officials who were approaching. The 2 officials, who had been walking over happily with the gong, stopped in their tracks under such gazes. They held the sabers at their waists worriedly, as if these villagers would pounce on them and beat them up in the next moment. Qin Liang said anxiously, "Brothers, this is the Gu family. The Gu Dajiang you mentioned is from this family." As he spoke, he turned around and waved at the villagers. "Hey, don't block the door. Where's Yundong? Why isn't she here yet?" Gu Yundong, who could not squeeze into the front, was speechless. It was too difficult for her. Fortunately, the crowd quickly dispersed from both sides. The 2 officials heaved a sigh of relief. They were holding a post to announce the good news. When they saw Gu Yundong walk out, they asked, "Is Gu Dajiang here?" "Sir, Gu Dajiang is my father. He's waiting for the day of the rankings after the court examination in the prefectural city. He hasn't returned yet." "I see." The official almost nodded. "Then well, congratulate Miss Gu here first." Then, one of them knocked on the gong and drum in his hand, and the other took 2 steps forward with a report and said loudly with a smile, "Congratulations to Master Gu Dajiang of Yongfu Village. You're the 5th elementary scholar in high school." 5th? Gu Yundong's face was filled with joy. With such a high ranking, it meant that he was a subsidized elementary scholar. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1197, Madame Zhou's exclamation, "Thank you for making this trip. Thank you for your hard work." Gu Yundong was overjoyed and hurriedly handed over the pouch in her hand. "This is the money for your drinks. Miss Gu is too polite." The 2 of them received the money. They had rushed from the county city to Yongfu village to report the good news because of this small amount of money. Only they were well informed and knew that the Gu family's conditions were not bad. They would definitely be generously rewarded. The 2 of them touched their pouches and quickly realized that there were a few pieces of silver inside. Compared to some families who offered 10 copper coins to send them away, it was much better. Gu Yundong invited them. "Please come in and have a cup of tea to rest. It's quite tiring to come from afar. It's such a hot day." "No, no. We have to return to the county city before the city gate is closed. Well, take our leave." Hearing their words, Gu Yundong could only give up. However, she still asked Tong Shuitao to pour 2 cups of sugar water for them to quench their thirst. At this moment, Shao Qingyuan had already brought 2 tubes of mooncakes and 2 cans over. Gu Yundong took them and handed them to the 2 officials. "Then I won't keep you here. It just so happens that today is the time for the Gu family to give everyone the Mid-Autumn Festival gifts. Bring the mooncakes and canned food back too. May joy be with you." The eyes of the 2 officers lit up. This trip was indeed the right one. They were wondering why there were so many people in the Gu family today. So it was because of the Mid-Autumn Festival. What a generous boss. She even gave gifts during the Mid-Autumn Festival. The 2 of them said, "Boss Gu, you're too polite." They took the gifts. In the end, they even said sweetly, Master Gu is a great talent and Boss Gu knows how to do business. In the future, the Gu family will be amazing. Let us congratulate Miss Gu first. Thank you, thank you. Then we'll take our leave. Boss Gu, continue with your work. There's no need to send us off. With money and gifts, the two of them were overjoyed, and their smiles lingered for a long time. After the two officials left, the villagers present turned their heads to congratulate Gu Yundong. I knew Brother Dajiang wouldn't be bad. He's ranked 5th. He's too amazing. That's right. I heard that this is Brother Dajiang's first time participating in the imperial examination. He's already a subsidized elementary scholar. Our village also has an elementary scholar. Ha 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 ha. Everyone was extremely excited, and Qingyuan heaved a sigh of relief. Someone suggested, Boss Gu, shouldn't we celebrate such a joyous occasion? That's right, that's right. Previously, we didn't hold a banquet when he got the county's chief. This time, he has become an elementary scholar. We can't let it go just like that. Even Qingyuan nodded. It should indeed be celebrated. Let everyone know that our Yongfu village has a subsidized elementary scholar. Gu Yundong had no objections to setting up a banquet. However, they had to discuss when and how to do it. Hence, Gu Yundong faced the heated discussion and said, I'll discuss with my father when he comes back tomorrow. I'll inform everyone then. All right. Everyone, continue to line up. Let's distribute the mid-autumn moon food first. Hence, the overly excited fruit farmers all stood back in line. Gu Yundong also turned around and returned to the front yard. She held the good news report in her hand. Gu Xiaoxi wiped his hands on his clothes and said very cautiously and piously, Yundong, let me take a look. Gu Yundong handed her the good news. Gu Xiaoxi had just taken it when Madame Zhou's exclamation came from outside. Yundong, something bad has happened. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1198, The Zhang family kicked an iron panel. Gu Yundong was stunned, and Qingyuan frowned. He turned his head and scolded, Why are you making a fuss? What's not good? Brother Dajiang's good news has just arrived, and you're here to cause trouble? Hey, I'm talking to Yundong. Madame Zhou bypassed Qingyuan and immediately grabbed Gu Yundong's hand. Yundong, I just returned from the county city. Do you know what happened in the county city? When Gu Yundong heard her mention the county city, she thought about the time and roughly knew what had happened. However, she still asked in confusion, what happened in the county? It's the Zhang family. Do you know the county city's Zhang family? Madame Zhou went to the county city with her daughter-in-law early in the morning to visit her son, Qin Jinkai. After all, he had been busy for a few days and had not returned. The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law were going to make him a delicious meal to nourish him. However, just as they finished lunch, something big happened in the county. Gu Yundong was relatively calm, but the others present could not remain calm. They hurriedly asked, the Zhang family? Is it the Zhang family who sells pastries? What happened to the family? That's right. Sister-in-law Zhou, tell me quickly. What exactly makes you so anxious? Madame Zhou slowly exhaled, her eyes bright as she finally said, If I tell you, don't be too surprised. The Zhang family I was talking about is indeed the Zhang family that sells pastries. Speaking of which, their family is considered a big family in our county. Those pastries are famous in the county, but do you know where they got those novel pastries? Didn't they say that the Zhang family is generous and bought all the new and delicious pastry recipes from other families? Madame Zhou slapped her thigh. What? How were they bought? They were simply snatched. As she spoke, she began to get excited. You don't know, but recently, a new pastry shop has opened in the county. The pastries made by that pastry shop are delicious, cheap, and especially novel. By the way, the mooncakes that Boss Gu is distributing now were bought from this pastry shop. Everyone was stunned and looked down at the mooncakes in their hands. Madame Zhou continued, Boss Gu has good taste. Back then, she saw that the mooncakes in this shop were better than the Zhang family's, so she made a reservation. Unexpectedly, when the Zhang family saw that the business of this shop was good and there were many people buying it, they had an idea and wanted the secret pastry recipe of this shop. When others buy secret recipes, they have to at least offer a suitable price and both sides have to be willing. However, the Zhang family doesn't think so. The Zhang family can let you open a shop in the county city, but the business of the pastry shop can't be better than theirs. Otherwise, they will be going against the new arrivals. They want the secret recipe of this shop, but they don't have any sincerity at all. They threw 10 taels of silver to buy the secret recipe of others. Tell me, is this humane? 10 taels of silver? Everyone was in an uproar. They looked at the mooncakes in their hands. Just the number of mooncakes that the Gu family had ordered was worth 10 taels, right? Moreover, there were others. The Zhang family was dreaming. The owner of the shop didn't agree either. The Zhang family was angry, so they found some thugs to cause trouble. They started to threaten and tempt the owner of the shop. Unfortunately, they kicked an iron plate this time. What iron plate? Madame Zhou was smug. She snorted and said, although this shop is not famous or eye-catching, you definitely won't be able to guess who the owner behind this shop is. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1199, Vomited, Who? Madame Zhou said mysteriously, the owner of this shop is from the capital. His family is this. She gave a thumbs up, and everyone was instantly enlightened. His family had a high-ranking official? No wonder. The Zhang family had indeed kicked an iron plate. Gu Yundong knew this better than Madame Zhou. This shop had just been opened not long ago, and the owner was invited over by Qin Wenjing. They had indeed opened a pastry shop in the capital. Not only the capital, but there were also other places. On the other hand, Xuanhe Prefecture had yet to open a branch. Logically speaking, if they wanted to open a shop here, they would definitely choose Xuanhe Prefecture. However, the owner of this shop had some ties with Qin Wenjing. Qin Wenjing asked them to come over and help him. He directly opened a shop in Fengkai County first. It would be convenient to open it in Xuanhe Prefecture in the future. The other party's request was for Gu Yundong to supply them with white sugar. It wasn't just the white sugar needed for the pastries in Fengkai County, but also white sugar from the other 3 branches in the capital. Although they could also buy it in the capital, there were many high-ranking officials in the capital. The supply of white sugar could not meet the demand. Their demand for pastries was huge, so they could not snatch enough. Gu Yundong agreed without thinking. She had just built a new workshop and the production of white sugar had greatly increased. It was not a problem to supply them. Moreover, the price offered by the other party was not low. It could be said that this was a situation where all 3 sides won. Hence, the pastry shop opened in a low-key and luxurious manner. At first, the Zhang family didn't take it seriously. However, when the Mid-Autumn Festival arrived, this pastry shop suddenly became popular. Therefore, the Zhang family began to panic. Do you think it's possible for the Zhang family to deal with the owner of this shop? Madame Zhou's voice pulled her back to her senses. Gu Yundong also listened. Madame Zhou said, as soon as the Zhang family threatened them, the owner of the shop knew and immediately took down the Zhang family. Not only that, but they also reported it to the officials. In 2 days, they found out a lot of dirty things about the Zhang family. It turns out that the Zhang family's secret recipes were snatched from others like this in the past. Some people were unwilling to give it away, so the Zhang family directly hurt them. As she spoke, Madame Zhou's voice suddenly lowered. I heard from someone on the street that 2 families were poor and set up a stall on the road to sell the pastries they made. In the end, the Zhang family took a fancy to them. Not only did the Zhang family destroy their stall, but they also snatched their secret recipes. In the end, they killed them to silence them. Wow, everyone exclaimed, really? Madame Zhou waved her hand. I heard it on the streets. How would I know if it's true? But I think it's most likely true. Otherwise, why would the government go and arrest the Zhang family? The Zhang family has been arrested? That's not all. I heard that those officials went to the Zhang family's bakery to make pastries. That bakery was extremely dirty. There were many flies and insects crawling on the pastries. It was disgusting. There was dirty and rancid water in the corner that could not be smelled. There were also people working in the workshop whose fingers were dirty. An official had just bought the Zhang family's pastries 2 days ago. When he saw this scene, he vomited. Ugh. Someone beside him couldn't help but retch. The expressions of the fruit farmers who were complaining about Gu Yundong not buying the Zhang family's mooncakes changed, and they almost could not stand still. After a while, they rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, their boss was wise and decisive to buy this shop with a strong backer. Otherwise, they would vomit after eating the Zhang family's mooncakes. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know your report so we can fix it as soon as possible. Chapter 1200, The End of the Zhang Family. They were not the only ones. There were also many fruit farmers who had doubts in their hearts. Now, they admired Gu Yundong even more. Just now, Madame Zhou had said that the mooncakes in their hands were personally tried by the boss and tasted better than the Zhang family's. Speaking of which, they had profited. Someone wanted to know what happened next and quickly asked Madame Zhou, what happened after that? Madame Zhou shrugged. Later, I came back. Then, you don't know anything about the Zhang family's ending? How would I know about the Zhang family's ending? I heard it from the people on the street. I asked around. As for the rest, it was the government's business. What did it have to do with her? Everyone was a little disappointed when they heard that. However, the discussions continued. Tong'an called for everyone to collect the mooncakes first. Shao Qingyuan whispered into Gu Yundong's ear, Shaowen has been in the county city for the past few days. We'll know when he comes back tonight. Gu Yundong nodded. The Zhang family had to be dealt with. They had helped the Tao family do such a thing, so Qin Wenjing naturally could not let him off. However, she could not use the excuse that she had colluded with the Tao family as an excuse, so she started with the pastries. In the past 2 months, Qin Wenjing had long figured out the Zhang family's background. He knew about the dirty things they had done, so he would definitely hit them in one blow and not leave a way out for the Zhang family. Once the Zhang family was finished, the Tao family would take action. After the mooncakes were distributed, the workers in the workshop went back. However, Yongfu village was extremely lively that day. Firstly, the Gu family had given out the Mid-Autumn Festival gifts. Secondly, Gu Dajiang had become an elementary scholar. Thirdly, something big had happened to the Zhang family. Each of these 3 things was enough to make people talk about it. On the Gu family's side, they had a happy dinner. Then, Gu Xiaoxi pasted the good news report with Gu Dajiang's status as an elementary scholar written on it in the middle of the central room. Gu Yundong was speechless. Only then did she know that nowadays, everyone acted like they were given prizes as students. They would post the good news in the most conspicuous place in the hall. Firstly, it could bring honor to their ancestors, and secondly, it could be seen by visiting guests. It could be seen how much everyone valued the imperial examination. Gu Xiaoxi asked everyone if it was in the right position. The people below were all looking into it. It was Gu Yundong who said, Uncle, this is the good news of the elementary scholar. If you want to paste it in the middle, where do you plan to paste the good news reports of the high scholar and honorable scholar in the future? High scholar? Honorable scholar? Yes. His elder brother was very good at studying and definitely wouldn't just be an elementary scholar. He had to be more far-sighted. How could he be like a kid who had never seen the world? Gu Xiaoxi coughed lightly. Then, how about this? Well, stick it to the left side. He gestured and asked Gu Yundong, this position is conspicuous enough. We've also made room for the good news reports to come. Gu Yundong nodded and Gu Xiaoxi pasted it. Shaowen came back at this critical juncture. Gu Yundong was very concerned about the Zhang family's fate and immediately turned around to gather information. She did not even hear Gu Xiaoxi calling her from behind. Shaowen was already reporting to Shao Qingyuan. He stopped when he saw Gu Yundong coming over. How is it? How's the Zhang family? Shaowen said, the Zhang family disregarded human lives. The government found out that they killed 3 people for their own selfish gains. Moreover, in order to expand their business, they used improper methods to harm many poor commoners and legitimate businessmen. There was even a huge danger to the Zhang family's workshop that threatened the health of the entire county. Therefore, old Master Zhang and his son, who had human lives in their hands, were sentenced to be beheaded and their wives were to be exiled. What about Zhang Jiao and Lu Wei's marriage? If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc., please let us know each report so we can fix it as soon as possible.